So you're a part of the Marvel universe.
I know.
They got you. They got you.
Now you know what that means.
What does it mean?
You're going to be doing like 35 films. You have career employment for the rest of your life.
And I know what the future brings. I know that when you see Madam Web, you're gonna love it. In fact, I think you're gonna see it twice.
I have never felt such joy!
What do you want from me? Why do you care for me? Why do you know?
The best performed, most well-rounded character in Madam Web actually appears right at the beginning of the film. That's right, it's the Columbia Pictures lady. She is looking pretty good for a 100-year-old woman. I'd like to blow on her torch. Yeah. Well, anyway, then she lowers that torch into a lake of petrol trailing out from a grisly car crash, sets it on fire, and that is the story of Madam Web. Now, if you've already caught the video on my second channel, Lost Chord, you'll know I think that this film will prove to be possibly the best comedy released this year. And if you've watched Chris Stockman's video about it, you'll know it's an absolute catastrophe because he refused to talk about the movie. It's actually one of the better superhero films released in the last several years because the destruction is all self-contained. Had it been a mainline Marvel film, we'd now have to lament the damage this roving band of incompetence has wrought on a film franchise we used to quite like. But with Madam Web, we're safe. It has all the weight and consequence of a funny car crash in a video game, so when you laugh at it, you don't have to feel bad, unlike real car crashes, which always make you feel a little bit dirty when you laugh at them. Madam Web stands shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Velma, Willow, Director X's Robin Hood, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, and that National Treasure show on Disney+. It's not only misconceived, it's misdelivered. It scans as though two uncomfortably close relations did illegal things without protection, spawned a baby that wouldn't look out of place in a Dark Souls game, that was then dropped on a concrete floor by a horrified doctor, then lobotomized, then dumped in a recycle bin, then diced up in a waste disposal facility, then pieced back together into something that I guess we're obliged to call a film. And really, what did anyone expect would happen? Much fun has already been had on social media, pointing out that the screenwriters seem to be on a personal quest to attain the hallowed single-digit Rotten Tomatoes score. Dracula, Don't You Wish It Was Untold? The I Can See Why This Was the Last Witch Hunter? The gods of Egypt are dead and aren't they lucky? Fucking This Doesn't Need a Funny Title Morbius? Yeah, sure, let's give these guys an $80 million budget. Films employ more people than bonfires do. We're doing our bit for the broader economy in these challenging times. There does seem to be some confusion as to just how connected Madam Web is to the other Sony Spider-Verse properties. Dakota Johnson, Madam Web herself, seems to think it's completely disconnected from all wider endeavors.
Dakota,
Hi.
you're a superhero. Who knew? Who'd have thunk it?
Not me. Not I.
Yeah, and the list of accomplishments of like leading a $1 billion franchise, of being an SNL regular, being a superhero, is this the most surprising development in your career?
For sure. Definitely. I never thought I'd be in a superhero movie. Did you?
I think you're capable of anything that you set your mind to.
That's kind. Thanks.
But given Dakota Johnson seems herself to be about as connected as a sperm tube after a vasectomy,
I mean, what % of Marvel movies have you seen? Let's be real. And this isn't meant as a negative. Like, again, just...
4.
I'm more inclined to go with the conclusion drawn by most of the internet and say that Madam Web is supposed to be part of the Sony Spider-Verse. That doesn't at all defeat the car crash analogy above because, well, you know, like what collateral damage is there to mourn when a Spider-Verse movie bombs? I mean, Morbius bombed twice. It's basically a Japanese flashback. The film does practically nothing to make connections anyway, which is definitely for the best. Being set back in 2003, for no discernible reason, save perhaps nostalgia for the days when superhero films were expected to be as bad as Madam Web, the film would stand as a prequel to any truly shared universe. And given the point of the film is to introduce a telepathic Spider Queen with the power to predict and change the future, well, it's easy to see how much damage such a prequel could do to everything set after it if connections had in fact been made. If Madam Web had in fact existed back then why is she absent now? Or is the entire Spider-Verse just the fever dreams of a drunk spider oracle? Those are the kinds of questions that would arise had the film tried to place itself definitively in part of a shared universe. You should by now have gathered that this video is not going to be the most constructive critique of Madam Web. The quality bar qualifying for a constructive critique is really very, very low. Hell, my last video on this channel was Echo. The one before that was The Marvels. The qualifying criteria is really just, this is a story that could be told, and it should have been told better than it was. So long as there is even a flicker of promise in the property, it is generally worth mounting a constructive critique of the thing. But there really is no such flicker in Madam Web. It should not have been told, and there is pretty much no way to tell it better than they did. You would have to rip up the entire script, delete the record of every pitch meeting, wait maybe 5 years for the city of San Francisco to legalize it, and then commit the latest of late-term abortions on every member of the creative team and start from scratch. So I won't lie, the point and purpose of the following plot breakdown is principally to mock the film, and that's fine. It's a very, very, very funny film. It's actually a very enjoyable watch. I don't remember the last time I laughed so hard in a movie theater. And the usual joke here is to say, but it didn't matter because I was the only one there. But that isn't actually true. It was, after all, Valentine's Day. There were a few guys in there trying to subtly dump their girlfriends by subjecting them to Madam Web, and vice versa. But they were all laughing too, so it didn't matter. If you want a genuinely enjoyable watch, take a few friends, get a bit drunk, go see Madam Web. You will, honestly, have a great time. Now, without further ado, on with the plot. It's webbing time? Nah, madaming time. Fuck it. It's just time. It's fitting that the film's first trailer was accompanied by song lyrics that read, "What do you want from me? Why do you care for me?" Because it means my customary second introduction can be condensed into the words nothing and I don't. I mentioned the trailer here really to prepare you for some of the worst dialogue ever committed to film. Unlike the film itself, I'm lubing you up beforehand.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
Now that was a real piss extractor of a line, but it does not in fact make it into the film, not in that form anyway. That's not because the general quality of lines in the film is better than that. Oh, no it isn't. No, quite the opposite in fact. That line was, if anything, too good for the film. I assume they removed it because they thought it would make the rest of the dialogue feel bad. There is of course a secondary reason for throwing that trailer mention in now, because it means I get to play this clip. I don't actually have any especially clever point to make by playing this clip, it's just kind of funny. Because Dakota Johnson looks like, she could go all Black Widow on the interviewer and eat his head.
You might be aware there was a line from the trailer that went sort of viral. Do you remember that?
What was it?
It was the line that says, "He was in the Amazon with my mum when she was researching spiders right before she died." Do you remember that going viral?
Why did that go viral?
I think it went viral because out of context, people were just like, "What does this mean?" Did you catch that at all?
No. Somebody brought this up and I have no idea what it's about.
There were lots of memes because I think people were like, what is... Just out of the context of it, it was just a very...
But isn't any sentence out of context out of context?
Yeah, very true.
What a silly thing.
There was just lots of bits that were like, oh, that, and that, and that. Do you know what I mean?
He was in the Amazon researching spiders with my mom before she died.
Yeah.
That seems like a basic storyline to me.
Fair enough.
But maybe I'm just underneath it.
No, that's fair.
Madam Webbers drops us in the middle of the Peruvian Amazon in the 1970s, where we encounter this woman. This woman is Mother Webb, progenitor of Madam Webb, who we'll meet in a few minutes' time. Mother Webb is in the Peruvian jungles looking for a very rare magical spider, accompanied by this swarthy chap here. Swarthy chap's actual name is Ezekiel Sims, but for the duration of this video he shall be known as Evil, because that's what he is, and that's what he says, and that's what he does. It's basically just what he is as a character. He's just evil. This is the first scene in the entire movie, and appropriately enough it got the first audible laugh out of me. It's not often you sit down in your seat and find the first scene in a movie makes you chuckle, but Madam Web isn't like most films. Even The Marvels attempted a basic level of competence in its opening 5 minutes, and you could tell it was striving to be at least a semi-serious production, which has the effect then of annoying you in the audience when it dumps all of that hard work in a ditch later and urinates on it. Madam Web, by contrast, lets you know precisely what it is from the moment you start watching. which is actually genuinely quite lovely. Once you realize immediately that the thing you're watching is a joke, you can happily sit back and watch it as a joke, and it makes the whole experience really quite pleasant. The clue is in the dialogue, you see. Some films that think they're serious will try to entice you with rich visuals. They'll look to convey important information about the world state via mise-en-scène. Since I've already mentioned the Marvels, we'll stick with that as our counter-example. It opens with a shot of a dying sun, a fleet of ships jumping away, and a group of vaguely recognizable evil men on a distant planet getting very excited that they have found a magical bangle. It's incompetently done, as I explained at length in my breakdown of that filmic catastrophe, but from that short opening you're supposed to glean, principally from the visuals, that something has gone very wrong for the evil men, and this magic bangle, one of two, is key to fixing it. By contrast, the cheapest, quickest, least artful, and most cringe-making way of conveying important information about your setup is just to have two characters explain it all in the opening 10 seconds. And the reason I've been really looking forward to making this video is so I can do what the film itself cannot. I don't need to tell you how hilariously amateurish this is, I can just show you.
Do you think we're close?
They're almost impossible to find. No one's ever captured one alive.
I agreed to provide security for you because I thought you were close to finding the spider.
Well, it'll be worth the wait. Dead specimens show that the peptides in the spider's venom, they supercharge their cellular structure.
That spider can give superhuman strength and power like Las Arañas.
Las Arañas? The mythical spider people who run across the treetops and punish evil men with their black poison touch. I like to base my research in science, not legends, Mr. Sims.
Those powers are wasted here.
These little spiders have the potential to cure hundreds of diseases.
Oh my god. Oh, that's so deliciously bad, I love it. Consider then what we've got here. These two characters know each other. They are in business with each other. They have traveled together for quite some time, all the way to the heart of the Peruvian jungle on a shared mission. This automatically makes exposition slightly tricky to pull off because characters do not need to convey information they already know to people who already know it. Many better films, that's a redundant line, every film is a better film, but anyway, many films bend this rule. If a lazy writer cannot think of another way to efficiently convey information to the audience, they will allow their characters to repeat things their interlocutor already knows. The cheap hack way around this is for a character to say something along the lines of, "We are here on a quest for X because we need X to do Y," and for the person they're speaking to reply, "Yeah, I already know that, so what?" After which, the hack writer has the main character explain something additional, usually a consequence or a consideration the person they're speaking to has not accounted for. It happens more often than you might think, and if it's done competently, it can be quite easy to miss. And if it's quite easy to miss, it is usually forgivable.
I assume you pulled the plug.
She's an energy source. We turn off the power, she turns it back on. If she reaches peak level...
We prepared for this, Doctor. Harnessing energy from space.
We don't have the harness.
Where's Agent Barton?
The hawk? Up in his nest, as usual.
I gave you this detail so you could keep a close eye on things.
Well, I see better from a distance.
Where is it?
The clean slate? Where you type in someone's name, date of birth, in a few minutes they're gone from every database on Earth. Sound a little too good to be true?
You're lying!
And my heart just went out to him. Yeah, Mom, we know. You've told us this story a million times. You felt sorry for him, so you decided to go with him to the fish under the sea dance. No, it was the enchantment under the sea dance.
How many wine glasses are there on the table?
One? The Holy Grail?
Open your eyes. No single cup. No chalice. Well, that's a bit strange, isn't it?
You know of what I speak, Gandalf. A great eye, lidless, wreathed in flame. The eye of sorrow. He is gathering all evil to him. Very soon he will have summoned an army great enough to launch an assault upon Middle-earth.
They are not all accounted for. The lost seeing stones. We do not know who else may be watching.
Well, hello, all. I am the King of Fruppyland, but I go by another name, too.
We know.
It's Tommy.
We know.
I have lived here since I was a mere child.
We know.
Got it.
Madam Web, though, is the perfect counterpoint. I mean, it really is absolutely perfect. It should be studied in textbooks with titles like How Not to Write Dialogue, or If You Write Like This, You Should Quit. The short exchange packs a huge amount in, and absolutely none of it benefits either of the characters speaking the lines at all. They both know it. They know all of it. They might as well be looking into a camera and talking directly to the audience. We are here for spiders. The spiders are magical, and their venom gives super strength. I, your guard, am here because I want the spider too. And you told me you were close to finding the spider, which is very rare. Yes, I am close to finding the spider, which can cure diseases, but it's very rare. The spider also gives people superpowers, like the Panamanian spider people who live in Panama, and they have super strength and poison touch, and they run around punishing evil people. Hello, I am a scientist. God, I fucking love it. Also, can we take a moment to appreciate the fucking appalling cut?
Hundreds of diseases.
Talking, cut. Smooth as sandpaper on your balls. Absolutely brilliant work from the editing department there. Now, you might be wondering at this stage why a woman so late term in her pregnancy that she's having actual contractions in the field should be out here in the middle of the Amazon rainforest hunting for magical spiders. I am not going to spoil the answer here at this early juncture, but believe me, there is an answer, and the answer is... well, it's Madam Web. It's fucking hilarious. What else was it gonna be? It is what it is, but we'll get there in due course. A question that doesn't get much by way of an answer is, if these spiders are so rare that hardly anyone has ever seen one, and nobody has ever caught one alive, how exactly do you know what its venom is capable of? If you know what its venom is capable of, doesn't that mean you've already obtained some and studied it? And if you've obtained some and studied it already, do you really need more of it? This stuff can cure everything from muscular dystrophy to SARS to mega AIDS probably, and you must already know its chemical composition and whatnot, so wouldn't every pharmaceutical lab in the world already be trying to synthesize an equivalent? You'd surely need to synthesize an equivalent, since the point of venom is that it's supposed to have some, bad effects. Spiders do not go around stinging and biting things that they want to help. Generally. What happens if a millipede attacks one of these magic spiders? Does it get cured? If so, how have these spiders not been naturally deselected? As I say, that question doesn't really get answered. The meta answer is that the writers need some reason for Mother Web and Evil to be out here hunting for spiders, so having them already know the properties of the thing they've never seen before is as good a reason as any, which is to say it's as bad a reason as anything else in the film. Evil returns to camp and starts photographing Mother Web's notebooks and journals, which I mention here because it never comes up again, and it looks like the setup for a completely different film. Indeed, mere seconds after we left her, Mother Web waddles back into the scene announcing she's found the magic spider already. Yay! So Evil pulls a gun and shoots her Panamanian pals. Oh no! She asks just what the hell he thinks he's doing, and here, 4 minutes into this film, we get LOL 2.
I don't understand.
I've been searching for that spider for years.
No, we could help so many people.
I'm not interested in helping people. No one helped me when my family was starving.
Fucking hell. Oh god, not gonna lie, the two most commonly recurring words, all in caps in my notes from the cinema, are just dialogue, acting. But since we've got all the time we need in this video, I shall elaborate. What the actual motherfucking Christ is this dialogue? This is the villain's origin story. It's the entirety of his origin story. This is it. We're not going to get anything else from him across the entire film. The villain in this big Hollywood production wants a magic spider, and he doesn't want anybody else to have the magic spider because nobody helped his family when they were starving to death at some point in the past, so he is now evil. Yeah. So this is kind of why I said I can't really do constructive criticism much in this review, because what are you meant to do with that? I mean, it's extra hilarious because it never comes up again. This is the extent of his character history. There is not enough charity in the world to make this clown person make sense, or indeed to feed his family, apparently. He's just astonishing as a fictive creation. I mean, let's just run it through. Let's run it through. His basic moral paradigm is, nobody helped my family, so I'm not going to help anyone. I just want superpowers for myself. Oh, and money? He gets lots of money later from somewhere. No idea where or how, but we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, okay, my dude, but how have you... just how? What kind of absolute spaztacular imbecile writer creates a character whose response to his family starving to death in some place at some time, who the hell knows when or where, is to go hunting for magic spiders in the Peruvian Amazon. What is going on? The vaguest of vague ideas here, I guess, is the underdog or the tragic antagonist. Think Gore the God Butcher motivated by the loss of his daughter, or Killmonger, motivated by the death of his father to create a black supremacist ethno-state and wipe out the white man. Such a noble, admirable character. Or hell, I mean, the closest I can think of from more recent productions anyway is from Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle also features a vaguely ethnic nemesis with a tragic backstory, Carapax. Carapax is introduced as little more than a strong, menacing thug, the head goon for the film's generic corporate bad gal. It's only right toward the end of that film that we find out who he really is and where he really came from and why he does what he does. Bred since he was a child to be a killing machine by American forces in South America, whose narrative purpose is to offer a corrupted vision of what the protagonist's future could be should he give in to vengeance. Carapax is spared, which shows him redemption is possible, which prompts his self-sacrifice at the close of the movie. Almost all of those are incredibly naff examples of the type. Yes, I'm very much including Killmonger, that film was shit and so was he. But next to fucking evil in this film, they are masterful, because their backgrounds are, comparatively at least, defined, placed, explored, and their resultant motives are at least rudimentarily connected, both to their present-day actions, with identifiable goals, all of which are satisfied in some more noble way via their interactions with the film's heroes at the close of the movies. TLDR, they make a basic level of sense. Even the pretty bad films I've just listed understand that origins provide motives and that motives act as a kind of through line. They have to be revisited occasionally and reinforced periodically in order that the audience understands, or at least slightly understands, why the villains are doing what they do. It's not that the villains have no alternatives, it's that they see no alternatives because tragedy has corrupted their moral compass and narrowed their perspective. But this film, the bad guy, Evil, just blurts out randomly, "Give me the spider, my family died." Then he shoots Mother Webb and runs off to inject himself with a spider goo and be powerful, and the family shit just never comes up again. We never revisit any of it. As a sure sign of bad writing, you could swap this prologue with any other prologue you can think of in which he still procures the spider, and absolutely nothing about the rest of the film would change, because there actually is no motive here. He makes no sense. His first principles are balked beyond comprehension. Hell, why not? Let's do what the writers didn't and spend maybe, more than 5 seconds trying to think about things from his point of view. Parking the dead family for a moment, actually no, parking it forever because that's what the film does. Let's examine his goals. He wants the spider so he can have superpowers. He doesn't seem to want money yet, but later he has lots of money, so let's assume that being rich and successful is also part of his goal set. Hard to starve to death if you're rich, right? I mean, at least until the communists come and expropriate your life. He's after a spider because he wants superpowers and maybe also money. Well, okay then, but you do realize that the thing you want isn't actually the spider, right? It's the venom. The venom is the thing you need. You do realize you're looking at an opportunity here to make Pfizer look like an economic minnow, right? The whole point of this enterprise is that you get and manufacture spider venom, meaning you could go back with Mother Webb, make a fuckload of money, and still have the superpowers you want from the goddamn spider venom. He says he doesn't want to help people because nobody helped his family, so he's a selfish dick weasel now. Okay, fine. You find me one head of a major pharmaceutical company who is not a selfish dick weasel, and I will withdraw this entire critique. If you get superpowers, you can be an arsehole to, like one person at a time? If you found a pharmaceutical company, you can be a dick to millions of people. Diabetics, cancer patients, HIV survivors, you name it. Millions, all at the same time. It's brilliant. If you want to take vengeance against the whole human race, join Big Pharma. It's obvious. You could be Martin fucking Shkreli, my man. What are you doing? But no, he just shoots everyone and runs off with a fucking spider. Oh, God. So Mother Webb is lying on the floor and dying. But then, a bunch of Peruvian spider people just descend from the trees and take her to a mystical cave. The director here has attempted to hide how terrible all of this looks by shooting the film as if she's trying to avoid YouTube's copyright algorithm. Look at all the weird angles, look at all the zoom shots, how very, very tacky. I have another question. There are several of these Peruvian spider people. The Peruvian spider people are very secretive, not to mention protective of their magical spiders. They have seen what has just occurred, and they have seen evil run off with one of their presumed children, I suppose. Why exactly are none of them attempting to stop him? Given the magical powers we know all of these spider people have, thanks to that hilarious exposition dump at the top of the show, where God, I can't believe that the character actually tells us overtly to camera that these people go around murdering evil people. So why aren't they murdering this evil person who's just run off with one of their spiders? Why aren't they taking him out? You'd think they'd be very keen on taking him out and very capable of doing so, but they don't, because, you know, if they did, then the film wouldn't have happened, and that would have been a real tragedy. In the cave, Mother Webb is placed in a pool where Mexican Spider Jesus, oh God, I'm not shitting you. No, he exists. He's in the film. Mexican Spider Jesus lets a magic spider bite her. In this particular instance, the power of the venom gives her the power of, I don't actually know what's going on here. Dubbing? I mean, look at this.
I will be here for her.
I promise you that this is not a problem with a totally legal and above board copy of the film I've just shown you. It is actually that bad in the cinema as well. I once took a magical substance, let's just call it spider venom for legal reasons, at a festival, the effect of which was to make the world come through on a delay, sound and sight alike. And granted, I was watching Queens of the Stone Age at the time and they were also high, so it might have just been them. But that experience quite closely matches a lot of the dubbing in this film. It's absolutely terrible throughout. The Vtuber model I use for live shows has better lip syncing than this film, in that it actually has lip syncing. Otherwise, the effect of the venom on Mother Webb is to, well, induce her birth, I suppose. So out plops little Madam Webb. We glean from this scene that the spider venom doesn't protect people from bullet wounds because Mother Webb proceeds to die. But that poses another interesting question. What exactly did the spider people intend to happen when they let the spider bite her? It can't be healing bullet wounds since it doesn't do that. It could have been to induce the birth, though that was bound to happen sooner or later anyway. The usual joke to be made here is, hey, maybe they read the script and found out later that we'll all discover that Baby Webb had something wrong with her that the spider venom could cure. But that's not really a joke in this instance because it kind of is exactly what happens. Given, you know, spoilers by the way, we learn later that Baby Webb had something wrong with her that the spider venom could cure. But it also confers the power of foresight on her selectively. Only on some people does it do this. Not on evil. Evil doesn't get foresight, because if you had two characters capable of seeing the future and you have them fight each other, that might have made for a genuinely interesting film, and we can't be having that. We're led to believe that Peruvian Spider Jesus might have a small case of the foresights himself, as his English dub artist tells Mother Webb that Baby Webb's journey won't be easy. She will return one day looking for answers, and he'll be here waiting for her, which transpires to be exactly what happens. Foresight is mechanically indistinguishable from a character reading the script, and so lame as it is, we really just have to accept it. Two more mundane problems arise, however. In the first place, given we're very shortly to jump forward to 2003, which serves as this film's present day for no discernible reason, we have to ask, just how did Peruvian spider people get Baby Webb from the middle of the Peruvian jungle, all the way through the US border, and all the way to New York City, and enrolled in the American foster care system? Well, as everybody knows, if you want to get from South America into the United States as a non-documented migrant and reap all the benefits of a sanctuary city, you have to walk. It really is as simple as that. Nothing at all unbelievable about that. I don't actually know why I mentioned that as a problem. The second problem, though, arises from the fact that it is at least implied that Peruvian Spider Jesus himself has a case of the foresights. If Peruvian Spider Jesus has foresights, and he knows that Madam Webb's journey is going to be difficult, and he knows that she will return to the Panamanian rainforest at some point in the future in search of answers, and he's also capable of crossing in and out of the United States at will, then why does he wait for her to come all the way back looking for the answers? I mean, couldn't he have predicted when she would have trouble and do the decent thing and hop over to New York and give her the answers, thereby making her journey much less difficult? Or was the trial part of the point? I suppose that's what we're gonna have to go with, but it's either that or he's just a dick. We then jump forward in time to the film's arbitrary current day. We know we're back in time generally because there's a big prominent blockbuster store on the screen, which pretty much every filmmaker everywhere has tacitly agreed indicates a period piece. And if we only had the blockbuster plus a bunch of other audio-visual clues, the audience could have happily assumed that we were set sometime in the mid-2000s, with the precise year being unimportant, given that it doesn't actually impact the plot in any way at all. But the film isn't content with a vague setting. Oh no, we are now in 2003 specifically. We know we're in 2003 specifically because the film specifically puts that on the screen for us. Otherwise, the fact we see people playing on PSPs, released in 2005, and dancing to Britney Spears' Toxic, released in 2004, might have been confusing. Madam Web is now a paramedic driving an ambulance through the bustling streets of New York City. In the back of her ambulance, we find her fellow paramedic, Ben. Ben Wyatt from Parks and Recreation, who in this movie is technically the Uncle Ben. We'll also meet his sister later, who is pregnant with name redacted. For licensing and other legal reasons, the film isn't actually allowed to tell us that he is Uncle Ben, or indeed that his sister is pregnant with name redacted. Because if it actually chose to call out name redacted by name, timelines would be fucked and lawyers would be rich. This is a high-octane, high-stakes, high-tension ambulance sequence as is stunningly conveyed by Dakota Johnson.
Ben, what are you even doing back there?
Oh, you want to come take over? I can drive.
I'm not going room temp on my watch.
Oh god, yeah. You see why the words dialogue and acting appear so often in my theatre notes? They almost run over this girl. This girl is diverse female character number 1. Now, the video on my second channel is short enough for people with single-digit IQs to bother watching it, meaning I've predictably had a few people latch onto this description and leverage it as evidence of my racism.
It's incredibly racist. Super racist.
Just pondering, leadingly, why it is I should label characters of color diverse character 1 and 2 and such, and what it would take for me not to do that. Viewers on this channel are generally of a higher caliber. Yes, I am complimenting you in the Premiere chat, don't get too used to it, but it is true in this instance, so I'm sure I don't need to tell you, but in the manner this film favors, I will tell you anyway because exposition is fun, that if you're only in the film because of your skin color, and if the character in question consists entirely of cheap stereotypes, then you deserve the label diverse character number 1, since the hollow seemingness of diversity is the extent of the characterization deployed by the writers. It genuinely doesn't take much to transcend that label, which is why Echo's Maya Lopez is referred to as Maya throughout my Echo video, and Ms. Marvel is referred to as Kamala throughout my Marvels video. Sabine Wren is referred to as Sabine throughout my Ahsoka video, etc. The point studiously missed by those who complain about labels like diverse female character number 1 is that the criticism is built on the desire for diverse casts to have good roles. But since the type of person liable to make such a complaint does indeed have an IQ you could count on the fingers of one hand, actually no, they couldn't do that because they don't have a high enough IQ. Anyway, it is predictably lost on them. This film has 3 diverse characters, one of whom I have already given a name. His name is Evil, because that is the extent of his character, which shows how low the bar is to qualify as a character, because Evil is nothing more than a clown person, and yet he does have at least one notable characteristic. But Madam Web is about to introduce us to 3 teenaged girls, just one of whom has characteristics transcending, actually just one of whom has characteristics generally. The other one has stereotype, and this one, diverse female character number 1, doesn't even have that much. This is diverse female character number 1, who almost gets run over by Madam Web's ambulance and who flips off the ambulance as she toddles away. We shall learn later that she really likes food, and that's kind of it for her. That's all she really is. In short order, we will also be introduced to this person, who is diverse female character number 2. Diverse female character number 2 likes maths. She mentions it in one scene, so it's true. And because she is South American, her father has oh god. And because she is South American, her father's recently been deported. Fucking film. That is the extent of her character. And because her principal characteristic is stereotype, and you'd have thought a pretty racist stereotype at that, but never mind, she is known as diverse female character number 2, because that is all she is. By contrast, in the back of Madam Web's ambulance is the stepmother of this girl. This girl is Sydney Sweeney, not that you could tell, because this is probably the only film known to man in which you cannot see her tits. By contrast with diverse female characters 1 and 2, Tits McGee here is comparatively complex as a character. And yes, the word comparatively is doing the kind of heavy lifting Sydney Sweeney's back is used to, lugging those things around everywhere. Honestly, they are so big, Ben Kenobi would mistake them for a space station. Quite why the filmmakers have taken a pair of eminently marketable assets and hidden them inside a nerd is unclear, and it's probably cost the film quite a lot of money. Nerd is one of Tits McGee's characteristics. We first bump into her in the hospital to which Madame Web has brought her stepmother, and this is where yet more of her notable characteristics are in evidence. Tits McGee is a misfit. She doesn't really belong in this family. She's not invited into the hospital room to see her stepmother, and her little stepbrother hands Madame Web, as thanks for saving his mother, a crude drawing of the happy family from which Tits McGee has been excluded, which is another semi-competently defined character trait. Tits McGee, more than diverse female characters 1 and 2, is shown to be an outcast, a misfit, which lack of belonging has made her nervous, timid, and socially awkward. Yes, you do have to park the fact that we are talking about Sydney fucking Sweeney, who is probably the last person you'd ever expect to be any of these things, but that is what we're running with as a film, and to make it more believable, they have dressed her like a frumpy nerd. This is the surest test of character strength in any case. Without describing what they look like, how much can you tell me about them? Diverse female character number 1 has an absent family and she really likes food. Diverse female character number 2 likes maths for a couple of scenes, and her family is absent because they were deported. Tits McGee is nervous, timid, socially awkward. She suppresses the hurt and resentment that stems from being excluded from her new family, and we'll see later that somewhere inside of her is a vivacious teenage girl who wishes she had the confidence and the freedom to do what vivacious teenage girls do. She just needs a little bit of encouragement. In short then, this hospital scene introduces us to something approaching a fully formed character, or at least the closest this film is going to get to a fully formed character. It's really not that hard to do. If you don't like it when critics use dismissive labels like tick box character or diverse female character to describe the entirety of your fictive creation, then the odds are it is not because the critic is an evil racist bigot, it's that the film they're critiquing does a disservice to the people you claim you want to uplift. In this case, diverse young women. The fact Madame Web only bothers giving reasonably complex character traits to Tits McGee here, and forgoes the same effort on behalf of her 2 more diverse female leads, is a problem with the film, not with the critic who is pointing it out. If you're a character, you get a name. If your skin color is pretty much the only thing there is to say about character, you are a diverse character. It's really that simple. Besides introducing us to Tits McGee, the hospital scene is supposed to add something by way of character to Madame Web herself. When she's told her patient will be okay, she asks who the patient is, the one she just brought into the hospital. When the little boy tries to give her the picture he drew as thanks, she doesn't know how to react and she's reluctant to take it. She has to be coaxed into accepting it by Uncle Ben Wyatt. All of this is to convey that Madame Web has no interpersonal skills. She is entirely focused on her job, but her job is helping people, and people is what she has a problem with. She has trust issues, she has trouble connecting. She instinctively rejects attachment because, as we'll learn over the course of the film, she's resentful that her mother was selfish by, dying in childbirth? Yeah, fuck it, we'll go with that. None of this is opaque, none of it's clever. In fact, it's so on the nose, it's kind of funny, though of course not in the way the film intends it to be. But it does constitute some kind of character work, and bad character work is infinitely preferable to no character work at all. At least we can take the piss out of bad character work. It's actually further proof of the way the show shunts its diverse cast aside. All of those traits I've just listed in Madame Web are mirrored in Tits McGee. Tits McGee is dramatically a portrayal of the social and psychological issues Madame Web herself suffers from. She is the principal avatar for the protagonist's character flaws, and the film exploits, or at least it tries to exploit, Tits McGee's adolescence in a way that parallels Madame Web's own character journey. They are lacking the same things, they need the same things, and the vague idea here is that Madame Web's development has been arrested by the loss of her mother. Showing that journey through Tits McGee's coming-of-age journey is a neat, if simplistic, narrative device. It's completely balked in the delivery, of course, but I'm pretty sure that was the idea in whatever weird writer's room of Dr. Moreau was responsible for this mess. Which means, of course, that if the film was actually bothered about elevating one of its diverse cast, it would have given this dramatic parallel to one of them, and not to Tits McGee. But it didn't. They just have food, maths, and deported parents, so here we are. Probably the only half-decent line of dialogue occurs in the next scene as Madam Web and Uncle Ben Wyatt relax over a takeaway. He invites her to a party and she declines and invents a ton of reasons as to why she can't go, though no real reason exists. She talks about maybe adopting a dog, and the script ties this into her status as foster kid. She describes herself as the model foster kid who peed outside and everything, which is an attempt, and I'd say it's done comparatively well, to tell us something about how she views her own life. By comparatively well, I mean the comparison is of course with the rest of the dialogue in this film, which usually just narrates important information directly to the audience without giving one single solitary shit how the lines would play in universe. The comparison between foster care and adopted dogs is of course abandonment. The idea that attachment really just means that you are a burden someone else has taken on in exchange for your programmatic good behavior. You are not a child to be loved, you are a dog to be trained. That is actually, comparatively at least, I'm gonna have to keep saying the word comparatively, aren't I? It's comparatively good. So, well done film. You got the sticker in the special needs class for dialogue. Yeah, good start. Shame about literally everything else though, isn't it? And yes, I am using the word literally correctly. This segues, and by segues I mean it falls off its segue, into Uncle Ben Wyatt telling her he's met someone and it's serious, which does pose a slight timeline question. If you two know each other this well and you work together, why doesn't Madam Web already know this? How has it not come up in conversation before? I mean, I'm no expert here, but if you meet someone, some time has to elapse, doesn't it, before you can tell whether or not it's a serious thing, no? Well, unless you're the kind of lovesick fuckwit who thinks every date is serious until you take off your beer goggles. Via a fortune cookie that doesn't work properly, we jump away to Madam Web returning home. This is our first actual glimpse of diverse female character number 2, who lives in the same building. Someone has come to collect the rent, but her dad is not home. That is it. What a terrific character introduction. Moving on, Madam Web feeds a stray cat because she's a stray. Do you get the clever link the script is making here? She feeds it milk brand milk. And then she goes rummaging through a trunk full of her mum's old journals and letters, which is all for the audience's benefit. This is the same problem as Sabine looking at Ezra's hollow message in Ahsoka, by the way. This is all useful information to us in the audience, but what use is it to the characters in the thing you're watching? Does she do this every evening? Well, she can't do it every evening because if she did, she'd not forget what's in the notebooks later, which she does. But if she doesn't do it every evening, then what about today's event specifically has prompted her to look at the papers now, specifically? Of course, you as a writer and a filmmaker need the audience to be clued in on certain things. Facts, information, whatever else, but you're writing a work of fiction. Characters need diegetic reasons to relay the information to you. You can't just have them break the fourth wall every other minute to narrate directly, nor can they just hold things up to the camera as though you are literally sitting over their shoulder in universe. Fuck it, actually no, Madam Web seems to think you can do that. But you, aspiring writer out there, you should definitely not be taking any advice from this film. Sure, some studio somewhere might throw $80 million at you, but God, really, like, at what cost? We're supposed to know from all of this that she is very cut up about having no mother. So cut up that she just spends her evenings poring over old journals and such while taking none of the information in. All of this slightly strains against the film itself, since if she is so very cut up about all of this, and so very interested in finding out why her mother did what she did, and she already has in her possession everything she needs to go about unraveling the mystery, journals, coordinates, travel documents, everything she needs, then why hasn't she already looked into it? Why does she wait until much later in the film to satisfy that same interest with the same information she's had in her possession for decades at this point? The answer, obviously, is that if she'd gone hunting her mother down before now, we'd not have had this wonderful film to watch. But that's not an in-universe reason, is it? And before you say, well, it's difficult and expensive and time-consuming to travel to the middle of the Peruvian Amazon hunting for lost spider mothers, no. Well, yes, technically all of those things should be true, but later on, under much less advantageous circumstances, she makes that round trip inside a couple of hours. So no! Madam Web is also a resentful character. She is resentful of her mother's disappearance. How do we know that she's resentful?
Hope the spiders were worth it, Mom.
I hope the spiders were worth it, Mum. I hope the spiders were worth it. Oh God, yeah, I'm just gonna put my notes from the theater back on again. He's like, dialogue. We rejoin her the next day as she and Uncle Ben Wyatt respond to the latest emergency, a car crash on a bridge. Now, I did a bit of research for this scene. The Journal of Emergency Medical Technicians has a lengthy document outlining the safety and operating procedures to be enacted upon encountering an injured patient suspended in the wreckage of a crashed car. It's a very informative read. Quite a lot of it is taken up by the special considerations necessitated by the fact that very many Americans are, in the scientific jargon preferred by medical technicians, morbidly fat fucks. Quite a lot of Americans are so fat, it actually takes 2 whole extrication teams to deal with them, presumably because just one team of trained medics might struggle to actually lift the average American. The remaining document details and discusses the various steps required, from scene analysis to risk assessment, immediate triage, psychological first aid, vehicular design and crash architecture, all of which has to be done in a precise order and with the close coordination of the various rescue teams involved in extracting fat Americans from the cars they crash on a regular basis. It is a precise, difficult, delicate operation, and the Journal of Emergency Medical Technicians does a good job laying it all out in language that even the layperson can understand. Madam Webb has evidently not bothered to read the Journal of Emergency Medical Technicians, because she just crawls right on into the crashed car, cuts the poor guy free so he crashes on the ground, probably compounding the complex spinal fracture he's already incurred, only to discover that the fact the patient was a fat American meant he was the only counterweight preventing the car falling off the bridge and into the Hudson River. So she promptly falls into the Hudson River and dies. Okay, fine, right, whatever. And just so we're absolutely clear about what's just happened here, I've spent more time researching this scene to make it funny than the makers of an $80 million Hollywood film put into making the scene. No, please, hold your applause. It took me 5 minutes. 5 minutes research shouldn't be an especially remarkable thing, should it? No, it absolutely fucking shouldn't. The average American spends more time planning their shopping list because they're so fucking fat. Madam Webb does in fact die in the scene as well. That wasn't hyperbole. No, Uncle Ben Wyatt tells her she was technically dead, when somehow, more than 3 minutes later, he somehow gets down into the water, into the Hudson River, fights the water pressure of the Hudson River to pull open the car doors and drag Madam Webb out, and then resuscitates her. But while she was dead, can't believe this is how it's happening. Yeah, okay. While she was dead, she had some incredibly useful hallucinations about spider webs, and now she has the power to see the future. Not one word of a lie. The spider venom she inherited when Peruvian spider Jesus let a magic spider bite her dying mother in the Amazon rainforest in Peru has been activated by a sudden plunge into the Hudson River, and now she sees the future. This is a film that does in fact indeed exist in the year of our satanic Lord 2024. Our regular viewers of the channel will know that I do try to give credit where it's due, even in cinematic holocausts like Madam Webb, ignoring as best we can that she gained the power of foresight from spider venom activated by a sudden plunge into the Hudson River. The process of her discovering these powers actually isn't terrible. Essentially, over the next 20 or so minutes of film, we get a series of very brief flashes forward, beginning with the scene immediately following her rescue from death. Then Wyatt reads out her blood pressure and such, and it improves, so she doesn't need to go to a hospital now, even though she absolutely definitely should still go to a hospital. But this was a flash forward, and the scene jumps back, the effect being that she already knows the results of the tests he's about to conduct, which does not operate as a revelation, because to her it's a weird deja vu, she doesn't understand it yet. It's the first of several similar scenes, and it does a pretty serviceable job, not only in introducing her germinal powers, but in demonstrating the confusion those germinal powers cause in her. This is not a moment of awakening, this is a moment of her being given powers that she does not yet comprehend. I quite like that. The first 2 or 3 times it happens, it's not special, but it's at least competent, which makes it very special when it's set against everything else in the film. Well done, writers, you got maybe one thing right in the entire movie. At least, until you overuse it and have it recur and recur and recur and recur, and have her continue to be just as baffled about it even though a sentient enema could have worked out what was happening quicker than she could. But, the first 2 times it happens, it's pretty good. Anyway, then some absolute buffoonery occurs. Again. That's right, we're back with Evil! Oh my goodness, thank God I love this guy so much. He's such a clown. Except that he's actually funny, he's like a funny clown. Evil is now incredibly rich. How and why is he incredibly rich? Fuck knows. Doesn't matter. All that matters is that he is evil and he is incredibly rich, and he's gone to the opera, which is where all evil rich people go. He is here pursuing a woman they have never ever met before, but because the plot needs it to happen, she immediately puts out harder than a coke fiend on garbage day, so they'd go back to his apartment to bone. I am now going to describe what happens without inflection. Actually, no, I will settle with trying to describe what happens without laughing, because that's fucking hard enough, alright? Evil and Easy MILF go back to his apartment, which is the kind of apartment you would expect a man called Evil to own. He has eerie glass cages with spiders in them and everything, because bitches love spiders. It is implied that they bone, but during the night, Evil has a nightmare. Nightmare Evil has a panic. He's, no, I'm not laughing. He says,
"Where's my spider? They took my spider."
No, still not laughing. Nightmare Evil gets accosted by 3 spider women who look ever so slightly like the 3 girls we were introduced to earlier. This is the one and only time we get to see the spider suits from the trailer. Nightmare Evil has a shaggy mop of grey hair in these nightmare sequences, so we know that this is set in the future. One of them kicks him out of a window and he dies. Then he wakes up. His nightmare wakes up Easy MILF, who asks him if he had a bad dream. He tells her,
"It's not a dream. I'm gonna be murdered one day."
No, still not laughing. He says it's the same 3 faces every night.
"It's a curse."
Easy MILF tells him we'll all die someday, but he replies,
"What if you saw who was going to murder you? You'd try to stop them."
If you hadn't spotted it yet, the plot's just driven a car through the window of this apartment and said, "Come with me if you want to bomb." He tells Easy MILF that she has no idea of the He tells Easy MILF that she has no idea of the torture of dying over and over again. He says he can't escape it, so he won't sit here and let it happen. Instead, he will escape it by finding the 3 girls and killing them before they can kill him. He asks Easy MILF if she can imagine how frustrating it's been trying to identify people he's only ever seen in a vision. But thankfully, he says, technology has advanced and developed new ways of identifying people based on images. And by the way, Easy MILF works for the NSA, which has developed this technology, so he kills her with his poison touch. He steals her password, which is 8 digits long, for fuck's sake, and now he basically runs the NSA. Because at no point in the future will the NSA notice that one of its most important MILFs is dead, has been murdered by spider venom in the apartment of an evil person. At no point will they ever change their passwords, because they are the NSA. At no point will they ever deactivate her account. For comparison's sake, the minimum password length for your Steam account is 8 digits long. Habbo Hotel recommends a minimum password of 8 digits. It would be easier to hack your way into the NSA's worldwide super spy surveillance program in the year 2003 than it would be to hack into your ex's MySpace in the year 2003. And he rounds off with,
"Believe me, it's a good thing you had no idea today was the day you were going to die."
Fucking God. Oh, I love this film. It's so good. The villain in this actual real-life film has a bad dream in which he is murdered by 3 women dressed as spiders who steal his spider that he stole so he could get superpowers because his family starved to death. So he steals the NSA so he can murder them. Somebody wrote this. Somebody actually sat down and wrote this film and put it in a script. Somebody formatted it. They fucking submitted it. They got it greenlit. It was made. It's in the cinemas right now. This is actually happening. Oh God, I'm not even going to dissect it. It's just perfection. It cannot be beaten. I love this movie. Fuck me, God, how do you even top this? Anyway, the next day sees Madam Web go to that party that Uncle Ben Wyatt invited her to, where everyone is enjoying a barbecue and some beers. Good job that these paramedics are not all, on call in case of some sudden emergency, because, if they all got really, really drunk, they couldn't drive ambulances. Oh, never mind. They are all actually on call in case of some sudden medical emergency. But it's fine, because in this film, you can get drunk at barbecues and still drive ambulances after the fact. This scene is very important because it introduces us to this guy. I have no idea who the fuck this guy is, but it's very important that we see him now because he's going to die in a minute and we need to be very sad about that. Rip this guy, the mother of name redacted. And all her friends play a game where they have to guess the name of the baby. The twist being that they're not legally allowed to get it right. The two scenes, the baby shower for name redacted, and the tragic death of whoever the fuck that guy is, develop Madam Web's power discovery mini arc. In the first instance, she has another flash forward that makes for an awkward conversation at the baby shower, and in the second instance, she sees that guy's death before it happens, but is unable to prevent it from happening. This means that for a couple of minutes at least, Madam Web has begun to realize that she can glimpse the future, but she's under the impression for now that the future is set. It is not something she can change. The only other thing worth noting about the latter of the two scenes, that guy's death, is that it's set at an old factory packed with, and I quote, industrial-grade fireworks. It is described as a death trap, a very unstable place. Luckily, though, it remains completely fine and stable until the big battle at the end of the film. It's mentioned that there are people trapped inside. I guess they were all rescued from the highly explosive, unstable death trap, but the only reason it's given such prominence is so that it can serve as Chekhov's fireworks factory. It's a fundamental in literature, usually known as Chekhov's gun. The principle is that every element in a story must be necessary. So if you mention a gun on a table at the beginning, or an unstable fireworks factory 28 minutes into your terrible movie, it must go off by the end. Meaning you know already, if you know to look for it, that this fireworks factory will be the setting for some big event later. And actually, you don't need to know about Chekhov's gun to know about that, because you just have to have eyes and ears and a functioning brain, since the film basically slaps a neon sign on the building that says we'll be back here later. That guy dies because he drives his ambulance straight across an intersection without looking and gets himself plowed into by a truck. Oh no, what a tragic loss. Probably shouldn't have been drinking all that beer before you drove your fucking ambulance, should you, you wanker? Everyone in the film is incompetent. Do you think maybe there are so many car crashes in this movie because the writers were trying to tell us something? Or was their subconscious trying to tell them something? Madam Web goes home very depressed because being able to see the future and not change it is a terrible curse. Think Tiresias in Oedipus Rex, who doesn't want to reveal his prophecy to Oedipus because he sees the inevitable tragedy, only to be goaded by Oedipus into revealing it, which sets in motion the events that reveal the very tragedy. Now you've thought about that, stop it, because it's far too clever and cultured, and we're reviewing Madam Web. Madam Web, by contrast, realizes she has the power to change the future when she stops a pigeon crashing into her apartment window. Yeah, that is the level we're at. Not that high, tragic, Greek, gay shit. Oh yay, finally we're back with Evil again. He's my favorite character. Evil has recruited a woman to do his typing for him. Such a progressive guy. The NSA still hasn't changed its passwords, or registered an unusual login, or deactivated Easy MILF's account, or even become aware of her murder by spider venom. So Evil's assistant, whom we shall call Malfeasance, logs into the NSA's worldwide surveillance program. She says it knows everything. There is nowhere to hide. Then, because this film's target audience hasn't actually evolved into multicellular organisms yet, she does another of those direct-to-the-audience exposition dumps.
The potential is infinite. It's intoxicating, but in the wrong hands, I mean, people can be tracked wherever they go. It's gonna change everything.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad we've cleared that up. A worldwide surveillance network with infinite potential. Just think what kind of evil schemes you could enact with such a thing. Toppling world governments, maybe. Starting wars. Corporate espionage. Industrial sabotage. The Rupert Murdoch-style villain in Tomorrow Never Dies damn near starts World War III, and all he has is one news corporation. Here, Evil has so much more than that. And out of all the infinite possibilities available to him, all of the infinite courses of action he could take, he decides the absolute best use of this brilliant piece of technology is tracing the faces from his dreams so he can dress up as a spider and go kill some teenagers. Let's leave aside that the machine can somehow take images from his dreams and recreate them digitally, which is just, fuck it, why not? Infinite potential, etc. Let's also leave aside that it's the most user-friendly interface in the world, so that Malfeasance has absolutely no trouble getting to grips with how the system works. That's not a problem really either. No. The problem is that having used this limitlessly powerful device to track the faces of his dream killers, Evil's preferred course of action is to dress as a spider and go murder them. I mean, just think of all the more efficient alternatives he has available to him. He could fabricate crimes. He could implicate them in terror offenses. It's 2003 after all. In the United Kingdom, after we had our own terrorist attack on 7/7, the police shot a Brazilian guy about 50,000 times in the back because he hopped over a railing while looking slightly foreign. It's quite easy to get people for terror offenses in 2003. Hell, he could make them into police and military targets. He could use his vast wealth to hire assassins. He could completely erase their bank accounts, their social security numbers, their citizenship status. He could hunt them down and hire them, try and change their minds. He could have them deported or abducted. He could have them taken out by snipers or thugs with baseball bats. He could ship them off to Epstein Island. He could tell the CIA that they've got dirt on Hillary. He could do fucking anything. Almost anything would be more effective and efficient than dressing up as a fucking spider and chasing them through New York. So why the hell is he dressing up as a fucking spider and chasing them through New York? The only qualm Malfeasance has with all of this, by the way, is that the girls are teenagers at the moment, so maybe killing them might be a bit mean. And this occasion's yet another example of the most sublimely awful dialogue you're ever likely to hear from a film.
I didn't know we'd be targeting teenagers.
They're teenagers now, but in the future, they have powers, and they will try to destroy me. I came from nothing, less than nothing. I will not give up everything I've built and have my life cut short.
Fucking dialogue! Via a quick scene where Madam Web fails a psych eval because she's tripping about the future, we find her at home watching a much better film than we are now discussing, A Christmas Carol, where Scrooge is an idiot and invents woke capitalism by letting a ghost con him into giving money to poor people who don't deserve it. Madam Web is currently watching the scene where Scrooge is fretting that the future he's glimpsed might be inevitable and unchangeable. This is a corny bit of foreshadowing, not least because who the fuck watches A Christmas Carol when it's not Christmas? It's also unclear just how closely the film thinks Madam Web mirrors Scrooge as a character, but it at least means we get to put something on the screen that isn't a complete disaster. It's also the scene where Madam Web realizes that the future is not in fact set. At the moment, she believes that it is, and this is very depressing because she just saw what's his name? That guy, really important character who tragically, died because he drove an ambulance while drunk. And now she's facing the prospect of a life of unavoidable doom. But then a pigeon crashes into her window and it dies. God, yeah, this really hasn't been her day, has it? Or even her week or her month or even her year. Yeah, you see that? That right there is a fucking reference. This time though, when she realizes it was a flash forward, she decides that maybe she can do something about it after all, so she leaves her window open. And this means that the pigeon survives, so now she knows that she has the power to change the future. Listen, she even has another one of those fucking ridiculous lines that shouldn't be in the script.
Guess he didn't die after all.
But I mean, she should know this by now, shouldn't she? This is the scene which should, and after a fashion which does, reveal it to her, which means it's the last time this little trick can be deployed without making her seem slower than a body positivity activist running a marathon. So naturally, it is not the last time they will deploy this trick. Now you might be thinking that this revelation might actually compound her grief, because she didn't try especially hard to stop what's-his-name drunkenly driving off in that ambulance, and now she knows that if she had tried just a little bit harder, she really could have saved his life. His fate was not inevitable. There is no fate but what we make for ourselves. That's another fucking reference. She just didn't know she could stop it, and if you think about it, that's very tragic. But here's the thing, you would actually be thinking about it, and nobody in this film is capable of that, so we just move on instead, and we never mention what's-his-name again. Rest in pieces, whoever you were. Our next scene takes us to Grand Central Station, where she is for no very important reason. It's just where the next scene has to happen. And she's not alone, because in a contrivance of, fate, we also spot the 3 teenaged girls from earlier in the film. They are all at this station, on this day, at this time. Moreover, they are, all 4 of them, boarding the same train together. And because Evil now has control of the NSA, and the NSA still hasn't locked him out of Easy Milf's account, Malfeasance picks them all up on her cameras. This means Evil gets to go over there and kill them all. And we do have to be very charitable here, and assume that he's been tracking one or all of them all day, which is how he just so happens to be here at Grand Central Station in time to get all the way to the platform and onto the train before it leaves. We also just have to run with the film's fleeting belief that none of them them are here by coincidence. They must all be here because something or somebody connects them, that somebody being Madame Web herself. Needless to say, being able to see and change the future is one thing, being the hinge around which all of time and space revolves is something completely different. This film will never really bother trying to work out exactly what its metaphysical mechanics are. I mean, hell, it's introducing questions of free will and determinism here, technically. After all, if all three teenagers are here because fate is drawing them to Madame Web, then none of the teenagers have chosen to be here and they do not have free will. But the fact that Madame Web and Madame Web alone is able to glimpse the future and change it means that she alone does have free will. But then, given that she's supposedly the center point of time and space, the fact that she has free will would seem to suggest that everybody else must have it too, right? Because the only alternative to that is that Madame Web is the only one with free will, and every time she makes a decision, the rest of the universe alters its plans accordingly, which makes her something not far short of God. After all, if she can change the future, and she decided to get onto a different train, or even to take a bus, or maybe even a taxi, and yet the universe has bound the three teenagers to her, then for that link to be operative, the universe would have to determine that the three teenagers would also find their way onto that different train or bus or even taxi, meaning that they cannot have free will or agency in the world, which is all a bit of a headfuck. Needless to say, the film doesn't even begin to grapple with these connotations, and I'm only mentioning it all now because this train scene really does drag on nigh interminably, with Madame Web experiencing several brief and irrelevant flash forwards interspersed with visions of evil killing the girls, and there's not really anything else to talk about. We can skip over all the padding nonsense and just get to the main nonsense. The girls all board the train, she foresees their death, she convinces them all to get off the train just before Evil shows up and kills them. He shows up in no shoe. Why isn't he wearing shoes? Do you have any idea how dirty the New York subway is? That's fucking gross. There's only one main problem before we get into the city action sequence. That is that once again, none of the girls really has anything approaching a character. Diverse female character number 1 actually hops onto the train while being pursued by some of the world's least competent policemen, from which we're supposed to glean that she is the rebellious upstart one. But she's not, because that barely impacts her character or her behavior in any way. After all, if she really were the rebellious upstart character, the type who flips off ambulances and commits petty crimes and runs away from the police, then why the hell should she in particular just meekly follow Madame Web around whenever she's asked to? Yet all three girls do. The film is ever so slightly aware that this type of behavior is highly implausible. It's one acquiescence to the idea that diverse female character number 1 might have some kind of agency in the world, sees Madame Web pinch her skateboard to lure her off the train, which I kind of have to praise by comparison with everything that follows, because it's the last time diverse female character 1's personality is evident. After all, besides complaining and making the most lukewarm attempt to grab her skateboard back, diverse female character number 1 is just as compliant as the other two in everything that follows. I mean, hell, I've seen diverse female characters tear apart entire McDonald's for absolutely no discernible reason. You've all seen the videos on Twitter. Are you really telling me this rebel criminal wouldn't have tried to at least smack Madame Web in this scene? Otherwise, it has the three girls mutter the vaguest and most pathetic of complaints as Madame Web leads them away from Evil on the train. Actually, their dialogue is really nothing but vague and pathetic throughout the film, because they are not really characters and nobody thought it might be worth writing a personality into any of them. But then, oh no, they turn around and fucking Evil has transformed into a gay spider demon and he's now crawling at them across the station roof. God, it looks so very, very silly. Where was he hiding that suit? He can't have been wearing it all the time because he walked onto the train with no shoes, but he didn't have a bag, so where was he keeping the spider boots? Why has he even made himself this suit anyway? Is he like the spider equivalent of a furry, someone with a weird animal fetish who dresses up as a spider because it makes his 3-inch penis feel good? Also, how is nobody else noticing this gay spider demon crawling along the station roof? There's plenty of people on the platform. There's probably cameras all over the place. Madame Web spots him. She even points right at him. The three girls spot him, but nobody else even glances at what this weird woman is pointing at. Like, ever? Also, how is this his plan? He controls the fucking NSA, and the NSA controls pretty much everything everywhere in the world. Alfie Essence later presses a button that turns all the traffic lights in New York green for no reason. He could have fabricated an arrest warrant for the three girls, or diverted the train, or had it impounded, or redirected it into the path of another oncoming train. He could do pretty much anything, and his plan is to dress as a gay spider demon and try to punch these three girls to death in public, in the middle of a busy train station, in the middle of the fucking day. Oh god. The four spider women do a light jog away from him and they board another train. But But the police are now on their way because one of them blurted out that Madam Web was trying to abduct them. So they hop off the train again and do a light jog onto the next platform. They run into some police and ask for help, but the police try and cuff Madam Web. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you taking out the police? You absolute fucking constable. They're doing your job for you. The girls are right there. They've been detained. Why is this your plan? Why are you helping them escape? You fucking poodle fondling what are you doing? Oh look, they've escaped. Well done. That was entirely your fault, Evil. You did that. You had them right there. They were detained. They weren't going anywhere. And you decided you would take out the cops rather than the 3 people you were monomaniacally focused on murdering. Fuck it. Toward the end of the film, he actually tries to take them out with a grenade. Why doesn't he do that here? Why doesn't he use a gun? There are so many ways to insta-kill these 3 cornered girls and their spider mother. But no, he tackles the police out of the way for no reason, so they can get up and just jog away again. Mother Web and the Spiderling steal a cab and they drive off. This, you might be thinking, is not going to work, because Evil controls the NSA. There are cameras all over the city, and this cab has a number plate. But never mind, because whatever use you can think of for this magical tech tool with limitless potential, you can be damn sure the writers never even considered it. So it's fine, they just drive away and he's unable to track them. So now they're in the cab wondering what to do and where to go. This is where we learn that diverse female character number 2 likes maths. We learn it through, once again, some of the most corny, contrived fucking dialogue ever. Yes, that is dialogue, not dialogue. Dialogue is a portmanteau of dialogue and fucking dire. Diverse female character 2 decides that now is absolutely the time to discuss the physics of sticking to ceilings or whatever. But because nobody involved in writing this film is actually interested in science themselves, the extent of diverse female character number 2's workings here is human feet can't stick to ceilings. Only she drops in words like friction occasionally to make it sound like she's not just stating the square root of fucking obvious.
He can climb on walls and dodge bullets. How is that even possible?
It's not. There's not enough frictional force in the bare human foot to overcome gravity and keep him stuck to the wall, much less the ceiling.
The revelation that human feet can indeed not stick to ceilings prompts diverse female character number 1 to say,
No science didn't seem to stop him, so what good is it? What good is science?
Ooh, fuck, ow. Yeah, ouch. This is the dialogue equivalent of rubbing your dick on a cheese grater. Don't ask how I know. Madam Web, meanwhile, is pondering what to do. Tits McGee tries to thank her for protecting them, and this prompts Madam Web to take the Hollywood attitude toward child stars. No, she says, I'm not protecting you. That's not what's happening here. So she denies that's what she's doing, even though she absolutely is doing exactly that, and it's absurd for her to even try to deny it, given she just stopped them getting murdered by a gay spider demon. But hey, the point is, you see, that these are all stray characters. She doesn't like making attachments, and we've not reached the scene yet where they all open up to each other, so they have to speak nonsense until they get there. She says their parents should be able to take care of this, parents being absolutely the best bet against gay spider demons who've just massacred a bunch of armed policemen, but the 3 girls explain that their parents are currently out of town. All right then, says you, the police. The police are obviously the people to go to. This is not one of those fuck the feds, ACAB, the fuzz are corrupt type movies, because that actually requires a modicum of world building to set up, so that's way beyond this film's cognitive budget. Take the girls to a damn police station already. The police will know they've been attacked, and they are being chased by a gay spider demon who just murdered several of their fellow officers. They will be highly invested in protecting you. The need for this approach is doubled when Madam Web turns on a radio and learns that she's the suspect in the abduction of 3 girls from the train station, because I guess nobody's thought to check the security cameras yet that show them getting attacked by the gay spider demon. And she reasons from this that the 3 girls are now her only alibi. They are the only ones who can bail her out, who can tell the police the truth.
Anyone who wants to leave can leave right now. Okay. Wait. Sorry, no, you can't actually leave because you guys are the only ones that know what actually happened.
So naturally, she takes them straight to the nearest police station, right? Right, film? You've just given us several cast iron reasons why she should take them directly to the police. So she takes them to the woods and leaves them there. What the fuck, film? What are you doing? What is this? So this is the scene where they all figure out that they are all connected to Madam Web in various ways. And honestly, the dialogue and the acting would genuinely embarrass your average amateur dramatics performer.
I've always wanted to be a Girl Scout.
Of course you did.
Anybody else starving?
All I have is gum.
Here, I found this in the glove compartment. Wait, that bag's already been open. We don't know how long it's been in there. Okay, I hope you're good at, catching squirrels. Okay, so what's the deal with ceiling guy? I told you, I don't know. I've never seen him before.
How did you know he was coming?
Oh my god.
I'm kind of more interested in why he's trying to kill us.
It's like so terrible. What is going on? Who are you? I don't even know. I'm not even sure the girls would be quite so blasé about this whole affair. Actually, no, scratch that. I am quite sure the girls should not be this blasé about the whole affair. The film thinks that it's obliged to try and put them in some sort of conflict with each other because it wants to send them on an arc where they become a family. But it also doesn't want to put in any work actually manufacturing that conflict. So the most it does here, and the most it will ever do, is have them be mildly and indistinguishably snarky toward each other, while otherwise sticking closely to the A-plot. Having at least one of them significantly dissent from whatever this plan is, and the plan really is just to wait around in the woods until we've had time for more exposition, would have added much needed character to the film. At least one of the girls should think that this is an absolutely insane plan. It is insane to be camping out in the woods on the word of a lady who kidnapped you from a gay spider demon who has not unambiguously tried to kill them yet. After all, he'd had that chance, but he took out the police instead. It's tenable that his goal might be something else. At least one of the girls should suggest that they go to the police, or should just generally refuse to go along with Madam Web, should maybe even run away, should do something, anything, to give the impression that these are actually fleshed out people with thoughts and agency. Dealing with an actual rebellion would then force clarification in Madam Web's mind about her own thoughts, her own responsibilities and values. If she had to go out of her way and put herself in harm's way to bring one of the girls back into the fold, that would have been a much stronger story. But none of it happens, so never mind. They just argue about entirely mundane and pointless things, like whether evil was walking or crawling on the ceiling. And because this is just how the film works, the mundane and pointless griping leads Tits McGee to say that evil, and I quote, looks kinda like a spider person. And this makes Madam Web remember that she's seen spiders before in her mother's notebooks. So she leaves the kids in the woods and she goes back to do some spider research. She takes the taxi, which would absolutely have been reported stolen by now, back to a city full of cameras and cops who want to arrest her, back to her own house, even though she's wanted for kidnapping because a random girl randomly mentioned that gay spider demon looked kind of like a spider, and Madam Web just happened to see spiders in her mother's notebooks earlier that day. This is just words. I don't really have many words. How do you describe this beyond just comically inept writing? I don't actually think I need to elaborate on that point. I think that's just what it is. Before she leaves, she tells them to stay put and not do anything dumb. She even reiterates explicitly, do not do dumb things, which of course means that the girls are about to get hungry and go and do dumb things. Madam Web drives all the way back to her apartment, and only then, once she's arrived, decides it might be worth prizing the number plate off the taxi. Pretty sure you're too late to do that, love. If it was gonna dob you in, it's already done that. I see you there trying to solve a problem of your own making, film. Well done for trying, but it really is far too late to pretend you're not She reads her mother's notebooks. A stray cat is there, which gives her an opportunity to read out loud for the audience's benefit about the Peruvian spider people and all of their many superpowers, which happen to match up with evil's powers. Then the film tries to do a funny.
If you could climb a wall if you've ever tried.
Yeah, you see, the problem is, when you're accidentally hilarious all the way through because you're just incompetent, actually trying to do a funny just isn't as funny. It's like a very, very stupid person becoming self-aware. Stop it. The genuinely funny bit follows immediately, as a photo of her mother and evil in the Peruvian jungle just conveniently slides out of the notebook and she recognizes him, so now she knows what's happening. Now that is fucking funny. That is the kind of writing you get for $80 million. That shit is just hilarious. Back in the woods, the girls, who you'll recall know that they are being hunted by a gay spider demon that wants to kill them, do indeed get very hungry. So they walk a few minutes through the forest and arrive at a diner. I have no idea how they know where they are or where they're going, but they pick the right direction and they find the diner. Now, 2003 sits in a sort of weird in-between place where I can't figure out where I'm too young or I'm too old to remember it clearly. Really, the only specifics that come to mind are playing Smash Brothers Melee and the Iraq War. And yeah, like if I could play as Roy in the Iraq War, we would actually have won. Because, you know, the trick is that Saddam is a tank, but he's got really shit aerial recovery, so he's hard to kill if you knock him into a hole, but if you get him off the edge of Baghdad, he's fucked. Anyway, that means I had to go back and research whether phones in prehistoric times actually had maps on them. There's a website from back in 2003 called Pocket GPS World, and so the answer's no then, isn't it? They didn't. Meaning the girls must have found the diner using women's intuition, because women's intuition is famously highly accurate, and women have never been known to do things like getting lost for 17 days on tiny islands that it takes just 2 days to walk the length of. Once in the diner, they continue to be about as cautious as a suicide bomber at a Virgin's convention, and upon spotting some dweeby teenage boys, they get up on a table and start dancing to Britney Spears' Toxic. Girls will be fucking morons, right? But as incompetent as they might be, the writers are obviously worse. How does this textbook case of hormonal stupidity land them in trouble? Why? Because some fat bozo at the bar just happens to be reading the front page of the Daily Bugle, and the Daily Bugle is apparently preparing itself for bankruptcy in the 2010s by doing stupid things like printing midday editions. The front page of this one has led with the story of 3 abducted girls, because it's New York in 2003, so 3 girls missing for a couple of hours is absolutely front page news. And because the only reason you would ever see 3 teenage girls dancing on tables in a place not called Epstein Island is that they've been abducted, actually that doesn't at all work, does it? Anyway, the fat bozo calls it in, and the call is picked up by Malfeasance on her NSA program, who forwards it on to Evil, who sets off to try and murder them again. Once again, I must point out that there is no need to critique this in any depth, because it is just not how writing works. Madam Web returns to the campsite to find the girls, predictably enough, are missing. Happily though, they've left a trail of junk on the forest floor, which she follows to the diner. Then Evil arrives and they all get murdered, and that's the end of the film, hooray. Except that it's just another flash forward scene, oh no. This is the point at which Madam Web's perplexity at these flashes forward is really just untenable. We know what's going on, and she knew what's going on. She knew it when she saved the pigeon. Still can't believe that was the big reveal, but you know, there we are. And she knew it on the train, which is how she saved the girls to begin with. So for her to now snap back to the present looking confused about what's just happened, and only realizing she'd snapped forward when she hears Toxic playing on her taxi radio, is just very silly and wasting our time. We probably needed to elide one of the earlier time skips entirely and have this as the moment she realizes definitively either that she can change the future or that she has no choice but to try and change the future. The pigeon scene being the most ridiculous of the previous scenes, that's probably the one I would cut, personally. But then again, I'm trying to make a serious story out of this, and what we've had so far is just divine comedy, so actually I'm not really saying that mine would necessarily be better, or indeed more remarkable. Even pretty well every other component of this movie is as mangled as Caitlyn Jenner's front bumper after that multi-car collision she definitely didn't cause. We should probably just file our script fixes in the shredder and, you know, enjoy what we've got. Madam Web hops back in the taxi and drives off. And when Gay Spider Demon walks into the diner and heads for the girls, she drives the taxi right through the wall and plows into him, which is honestly just kind of funny. And it's only the first time she hits him with a moving vehicle. The next one's even better. Can't wait for the next one. The next one is legitimately fucking hilarious. Driving away in the taxi, the words dialogue and acting appear once again in my notes as Madam Web scolds the 3 girls.
You're so impulsive and entitled, and you don't listen. We didn't mean to. Whatever, don't even say anything.
I'm told that Dakota Johnson can act. I honestly don't know about the other 3. The only thing I ever hear about Sydney Sweeney is that her boobs control the fucking tides. But that, whatever, don't even say anything, is quite possibly one of the worst delivered lines I've heard in recent times, narrowly beating out a lot of other lines that are also in this movie. It really does feel like the writers haven't got a voice for her character, so her lines are just a mixture of improv and generic. Finding your character's voice is a vital part of creating and then conveying that character. What do they sound like? How do they speak? With what accent? With what mannerisms? With what tics? All of that is supposed to stem from who and what the character is and represents. Most films, even very bad films, understand this basic principle because it's foundational to character creation. You can do worse if you are writing a work of fiction yourself and struggling to find a character's voice than trying to find an archetype of that character and simply listening to how they speak on YouTube and then conveying that through the mouth of your character. That's a pretty good place to start. If you don't understand that point, you either don't understand your own character, or, as in this case, you don't actually have a character. You just have an actress signed on to play a role in a film that should not exist. And obviously, it just gets worse, as the film knows now that it has to try and do more with this seeing the future business than it actually has ideas for. So rather than tell them you could have died, which is the perfectly short, sweet and concise rebuke to an idiot child whose life you've just saved, Madam Web opts for the much clunkier,
Your futures were almost so different. You're lucky I saw them.
Yeah, we know, film. She can see the future. We've known that for ages. We realized that before she did. Being dead is technically a different future, but I think the dead bit probably outweighs the difference bit. Just speak like an actual fucking real-life person, not some bad Rick and Morty character for fuck's sake. And who are you, Jeff Loveness? But, again, I am going to try and give credit when it's even vaguely earned. There's a little bit of character work in this scene. After all, we've just seen Tits McGee in that dynamic I laid out earlier, the awkward, insecure girl who really wants to be free and liberated and who only needs a little bit of encouragement. We've just seen her take that encouragement from what you already know, because it's as subtle as a brick, will end up being her surrogate family. And lo, she removed her glasses, and she slutted up a bit like a good feminist girl, and she had a good time frolicking on tables with the gals, which description will probably also match any Rule 34 content that emerges from this film. Now, having just been scolded by Madam Web and attacked for her indiscretion and her naivety and her lack of responsibility, Tits McGee retreats back into her well-endowed shell, as is represented by her slowly and sadly putting her nerd goggles back on. That's actually not a terrible touch. Someone at some point in the making of this film had a good idea for her character. They even conveyed it visually. I like that. Well done. Again, shame about pretty much everything else. Evil, meanwhile, is very annoyed that the girls keep eluding him. Malfeasance tells him that she's identified the woman who escaped with them, and Evil, incomprehensibly, says that he is not interested in her. My dude, yes you are. She's the commonality. She's the one who keeps engineering their escape. She's the one driving the girls around in the back of stolen taxis. You absolutely should be tracing Badan for some reason. You should be very interested in her, not just waiting for Malfeasance, who as best I can work out is such a non-character she doesn't even have a real name, to tell you that you should be interested in this obviously interesting character. Malfeasance, though, she tells him that he should be interested in this obviously interesting character. She tells Evil that this mysterious woman is called Cassandra Webb.
Did you say Webb?
Because, how many times do you find yourself trekking through the Amazon rainforest looking for magic spiders with a woman whose surname happens to be Webb? Madam Webb takes the girls to a motel where we learn the truth about their parents. Not that we particularly care. Madam Webb says she'll take them back to their parents first thing in the morning, rather broaching the question, why haven't you done this already, and how the hell do you think normies will deal with a gay spider demon? And also, have you forgotten that you need them to prove you aren't a kidnapper because the police are after you? The girls, though, they all say that that is not possible. It's not possible because, in order, Tits McGee's mother is in a psych ward because she did not cope well with her divorce, and her stepmother doesn't want her around, so she ran away. Diverse female character number one's parents don't like her because having a kid messed up their lives, so they won't fly back from China to deal with her messes. And diverse female character 2, well, she's Hispanic. So naturally, ICE deported her dad 6 months ago, and this also means that they can't go to the police because she's not 18 yet, and that means she'd be deported? I don't think that's how this... Fuck it, look, we're not doing immigration in the Madam Web video. I know the film's trying to do it, I'm not even gonna do it. No, fuck it, leave it, not touching it. Oh, but you though, you in the audience and in the premiere chat, you can all go to jail. Straight to jail. Because the film's now just done one of those very awkward things where it casts objectively attractive actresses in their 20s and then tells you 2/3 into the film that their characters are meant to be underage. It's like the anti-Vorsch dilemma. The Vorsch dilemma is having prepubescent cartoon girls getting railed by horses and trying the but in the law she's a 3,000-year-old dragon defense as though anyone's gonna buy that shit. Off to jail, the lot of you. This isn't fucking Japan. You're not allowed to find Isabella Merced, Sydney Sweeney, or the other one I've never heard of attractive in this film. Nope, they're underage officially. I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. Is it worth pointing out that going to the police should have been Madam Web's first thought, and it now seems like they very studiously avoided having her think of that very obvious solution because they weren't ready to drop this reveal yet? Is it worth pointing out that going to the police is probably still their best bet, since they're likely to be much more interested in stopping a cop-killing gay spider demon than they are deporting a child who, for all we know, was born in the country anyway? Is it worth pointing out that the film seems to have realized that this might not be quite how immigration enforcement works against undocumented minors, so it has diverse female character to tack on that she doesn't want to end up in the foster system either, as though that's even in the same ballpark of bad outcomes as getting deported? No, probably not, but I've pointed it out now, so we're just gonna have to live with it. The narrative point of this scene is, of course, to reveal this commonality between all of its characters. They all have fucked up family lives. They are all alone. They are all, in some senses, stray cats, and as we all know, the only thing Madam Web really gets down with is stray pussy. And this reveal, which was really telegraphed ages ago so it barely counts as a reveal, itself telegraphs the close of the movie, where the three spider women will become as sisters with Madam Web acting as their mother, as one big happy spider family. Spoiling the end of your movie by being so comically unsubtle about it really doesn't count as a mark against the film though, because, who really cares? You know, like who's actually invested in this story and these people? Tits McGee then asks Madam Web to help them, and then they all go to bed. And while they're sleeping, Madam Web abandons them. No, I'm not joking, she actually does. She quietly gathers her things, and she looks slightly regretful, but then she sneaks out of the motel and drives off. Now yes, of course, you just know already that she changes her mind. She changes her mind pretty quickly, in fact. But it's very funny that she even had to change her mind, since it means she was a heartbeat away from being one of the bitchiest bitches to ever bitch on the screen. She's just dragged these three girls away from home, away from the city, she's then abandoned them in the woods, then she's dragged them away from the woods and dumped them in a motel, and she's listened as they all told her how their parents abandoned them and they're all alone in the world with nobody else to protect them, and her first response is to ditch them in a motel in the middle of nowhere while they are sleeping and drive away. I have no idea what she's thinking. I think the writers are trying to play off what little of her character they've bothered to establish, that she's a pathological loner who resists all human attachments, and yet became a medic for some reason. That she has no idea how to react when placed in a position of trust, even though she became a medic for some reason. And so she's now running away from responsibility, even though she became a medic for some reason. This has never been made to gel with her actions in the film except in this moment. She's already taken responsibility for them multiple times, putting her own life at risk by protecting them from evil. She has passed up several prominent opportunities to hand them over to people more capable and responsible than she is. She had no reason not to take them to their parents immediately, since she did not yet know that they were all out of town or had abandoned them, and especially not to the police immediately. Had she actually been given a reason not to do that earlier on, or had she tried and failed to do that earlier on, then her present conflict would work a little bit better, since she'd have been saddled with these kids against her wishes and her inclinations, meaning the natural course of events would have her slowly come to realize her own responsibility for them. That is what the film is trying to do, but without actually setting it up in any logical sort of way. But by having her take responsibility just without acknowledging that that's what she's doing, and then pass over legitimate opportunities to transfer that responsibility despite having every opportunity to do so, it makes her actions in this scene in particular unforgivable, since she's previously chosen to take responsibility and is now choosing to abandon actual children in a strange motel for no fucking reason. God, like, I've got no idea how much of this was balked in reshoots, how much of the original script is still in play, how much of the order of events has been changed or whatever else. But the fact it's so easy to turn her into a semi-functioning character only goes to prove that she isn't even a semi-functioning character, because her motives, actions, values, and beliefs are just completely out of sync. This is the problem when women are loners, they just have no opportunity to sync, you know? Anyway, the film's about to start tripping balls, so let's get back to it. It's while she's driving past the diner from earlier, which is not something you'd do if you were still running from the police, but whatever, that she seems to have second thoughts. Also, her hand is hurting slightly because Gay Spider Demon grabbed it, so she gets out of the cab, for no very good reason, and she walks into the wrecked diner, where she has a dream conversation with evil. This is the first proper meeting, and so the first proper conversation between the two characters, with the worst lines in the entire movie, and I'm delighted to report that it does not disappoint.
Why are you doing this?
I need to stop them from killing me.
We're not killers. We're just teenagers.
In the future, I've become much more. They will destroy me and everything I've built. Those girls cannot exist.
How come you get to decide?
Because I'm the one with the powers. If you knew what I knew, you'd do the same thing.
Would I? The only price to pay was the lives of the girls.
The only thing I know is that in the future, they also have powers.
The girls? The girls have powers in the future?
Did you think you could beat me with your mind? Your mother underestimated me. Don't make the same mistake. Tell me where they are. They don't mean anything to you. You could just walk away.
I can't. Like, what? What? Who? What? Where? When? Why the fuck is any of this? Who wrote this shit? Oh yeah, it was you guys. Why did you write this shit? Oh god, how do you even begin? For starters, it means she only dreamed and or hallucinated abandoning the girls in the motel, which I don't think actually detracts from how morally repugnant that decision was. It's just that she tripped it rather than actually doing it. I have no idea how the hell these two are now force Skyping each other like Rey and Kylo Ren now. My guess is that it's their shared spider demon venom. Or it might be that he touched her hand, but it's never going to come up again. The film's never going to explain it, so I think we can just dismiss it as dumb shit. I don't know who thought the best way to flesh out Evil's character is just to have him repeat variants of the same ridiculous line about the future and powers, but it is very fucking funny, and I'm glad they did. I don't know why Madam Web is so zen about this freaky mind bending, but I think it probably has something to do with her not having any kind of character. Likewise, I don't really know why she doesn't ask Evil any pertinent questions, like, why exactly are you doing all of this? Or indeed try to change his mind or even mount a defense of the girls beyond, but they're just girls. But I think that also has to do with her not having a character. I have absolutely no idea where Evil pulled the "you're trying to beat me with your mind" bit from, or why this is somehow tied to her mother underestimating him, because that's never actually a thing that happened. And I'm pretty sure it's a holdover from a time when this movie was a completely different movie. But the fact it's there is also very funny, so I'm glad they kept it in. I don't know why Evil wouldn't have deduced from their mind meld in the diner that Madam Web and the girls were still in the vicinity of the diner, but given we know that this dream mechanic isn't actually a mechanic, it's just a mind trip, we can just accept that he doesn't gain any useful information from it. And I don't really know what the film thinks we're supposed to have gleaned from any of it, save that it thought 25 minutes out from the end was as good a time as any to have the hero and the villain interact for the first time in the movie. But I suppose it also resolves Madam Web's mind that she shouldn't abandon these defenseless girls in a strange motel, leaving them to die, so that's good, I suppose. Though she should never have even considered doing that in the first place, because it's the textbook definition of a dick move. Madam Web wakes up, then she wakes the girls up and she explains that Evil's hands release lethal spider venom and the way to beat it is to perform CPR on the victim. No, that makes absolutely no sense. No, I don't know where she pulled this information from or why. No, at no point in the film will they ever use CPR to counteract spider demon venom, but the fact it is so completely random and out of place means that they will definitely use it later in a way that has nothing to do with anything, probably. So she teaches them CPR. The girls now begin to work together. They've spent a night in a room together, so they have synchronized. This isn't really character development, it's more just biology, but you know, it's progress of a kind. Madam Web also relates that her mother's notebooks detail stories of the Peruvian spider people, and she now needs to go and figure out what's happening by going to Peru. But what to do about the 3 girls who are being hunted by a superpowered gay spider demon who's trying to kill them with his evil neurotoxins and who has access to all sorts of lethal technology and stuff? That's a bit of a quandary, isn't it? You can't leave them alone because they'll be defenseless and they'll die, but anyone you leave them with will be in incredible danger and they will also probably die, so you can't really leave them with, oh, never mind, she leaves them with Uncle Ben. Fucking bitch. Now, you might be wondering just how that conversation went. How would you convince Uncle Ben to put himself, his very pregnant sister who's staying with him, in harm's way to defend 3 teenage girls while you, Madam Web, who've been a bit of a distant dick to him already anyway, run off to Peru to research spider people? Yeah, good question. Wonder away. The film doesn't even try to tackle it. She waltzes in, she drops them off, we cut forward to when Uncle Ben says he's just a bit confused but he'll do it, and Dakota Johnson once again puts in what can only be described as anti-effort in her line delivery.
I'll be back as soon as I can. Thank you, Ben. You didn't ask for any of this.
Okay, well, neither did you.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of delivery makes me think that you didn't ask for any of this either, but somehow you've landed yourself with this film. So she goes off and we get a scene transition that really serves to fudge the question of time. Surely, you'd be thinking, it's gonna take us several weeks to get to the middle of the Peruvian Amazon, isn't it? And anyway, how do you even expect to manage that without getting stopped and arrested? This is America, it's 2003. The police are supposed to be after you. Evil himself is after you. He has access to the NSA's limitless worldwide spy technology. How on earth do you expect to drive that fucking taxi to an airport, the one you stole, remember, to buy a ticket, to get past passport control and out of the country, and then back into the country later without anyone stopping you? I mean, hell, if your skin was just 3 shades darker, you'd be shot at least 4 separate occasions in this process. But you should at the very least be arrested. And the time question is also an important one because there are really only 2 logical possibilities entailed by the scene transition, and neither of them really works. Either it does take her several weeks to get to the middle of the Peruvian Amazon, and then several weeks to get back, during which Evil, with his supercomputer and his evil schemes, does nothing to trace the girls to Uncle Ben's house, which is very silly and in fact completely unbelievable. Or the film genuinely thinks you can get to the middle of the Peruvian Amazon and back inside of a few hours, half a day at most, which is just incredibly fucking silly. Oh, never mind, there's a bus. Madam Web goes for a quick stroll through the rainforest, and who should appear behind her? Well, of course, it's Peruvian Spider Jesus. Remember how he said that her life would be really difficult, but she'd come back looking for answers and he would be here waiting for her? Well, here he is. He's been here waiting for her all this time. Meaning that, yeah, he can also see the future. Meaning that, yeah, he could have intervened at any prior point and made her life much easier, but he didn't because he's a mystical Spider Jesus. Well, actually, no, he didn't because the film has no idea how to handle future-seeing Peruvian Spider Jesus type characters. But it does know what it wants them for, which is to pass information the audience already knows to a character who, she already knows it as well, technically. Peruvian Spider Jesus tells her that her mother came to the Amazon hunting for a magical spider because she wanted the healing properties of its venom, but she was betrayed many years ago by the evil one. He turned himself into a gay spider demon and was cursed for his selfishness and has since spent his whole life trying to outrun destiny. His destiny being that he will be murdered for pretty much no apparent reason by 3 young girls who've decided to dress as spiders for equivalently no apparent reason. As I say, Madam Web knows all of this already, meaning it's really in the script to remind the audience, because subliminally this film realizes that the audience probably isn't paying much attention to whatever the hell passes for this plot. There is one thing, however, that remains to be resolved. There is one thing Madam Web does not know. That one thing is, why would my mother have come all the way out here while pregnant and died hunting for spider venom that could cure pretty much all diseases? I mean, what kind of selfish bitch would do something like that? This, after all, is the source of Madam Web's resentment, remember? Remember the line, "I hope the spiders were worth it, mum"? The film, though, doesn't consider trying to cure all known diseases sufficient to redeem Mother Web in her daughter's eyes. So Peruvian Spider Jesus' appalling ADR tells her that she has to go back to her beginning and even before her beginning so she can find new powers or something. Is Peruvian Spider Jesus one of his powers is that he doesn't actually have to move his lips to speak?
You have to go back to your beginning and keep going past that. There are powers you don't even know you're capable of.
He rips off the Ancient One from Doctor Strange and punches her soul into the pool she was born in, which induces a flashback. In her flashback, she asks Mother Web why she hated her so much, which she didn't, and which she should already know that she didn't, and which the film hasn't done so much as a solitary thing to show that was ever a reasonable thing to believe that she did. Never mind. Her mother, having been shot by evil, is dying on the floor, and she says, "I'm sorry." Madam Web then learns via an even deeper flashback that a doctor had told Mother Web that her unborn daughter has a genetic neuromuscular disorder. Madam Web helpfully chimes in at this moment with the line,
"But I don't have a neuromuscular disorder."
Just in case, like her, you're so retarded that you don't know what's happening in this scene. Mother Web says she will not accept a diagnosis of helplessness, and she's damn well not going to raise her daughter to accept that sort of thing either, thereby confirming that Mother Web thinks that disabled people are helpless and should probably be wiped out. Evil actually did the world a favor by shooting a woman who, had she lived, would have gone on to be Spider Hitler, practicing spider eugenics. Okay, no, not really. I'm reaching at this point. Madam Web, though, completely misses that she's in a flashback in this scene, and she reassures flashback Mother Web that she did indeed not raise her daughter to accept that she would be disabled, which is funny because here she is, having had her soul punched out of her body, chatting to the flashback of a woman who's been dead for 30 years, so who can't possibly hear her, which sounds pretty disabled to me. Madam Web then apologizes to her dead mother for having spent so long being angry at her, which is pointless because her mother has been dead for 30 years and unable to register that Madam Web has spent 30 years being angry at her. They have a flashback hug that really does put me in mind of Kylo Ren inventing a Han Solo to forgive him for wiping out an entire solar system, and because she's now forgiven her dead mother for doing something that isn't at all wrong and that never was at all wrong to begin with, this allows Madam Web to access the skill tree and unlock the next tier of spider powers. She puts all her points into 2 skills: improvements to her foresight and the ability to split up and be in several places at once. Okay, how in the risen fuck is that supposed to work? Well, in the immortal words of Uncle Ben, as put through Google Translate and spoken then in the immortal words of Peruvian Spider Jesus,
You are the only one who can change the future. And when you take on the responsibility, great power will come.
When you accept responsibility, great power will come. LOL. LMAO. LMFAO. Ruffle even. Yeah, I think that's a ruffle. So just to recap, Madam Web spent 30 years blaming her mother for getting herself killed before Madam Web was born. Madam Web should already have known that her mother was hunting for spider venom that could cure all known diseases, because you'd think that might have come up in Mother Web's notebooks and journals that somehow made it back to Peru after she died, and which Madam Web reads a lot. In the event, this is revealed to her anyway by Peruvian Spider Jesus. But this supreme act of selflessness was not sufficient to excuse her mother dying in the jungle, because Madam Web is in fact a selfish cow, and is now canonically incapable of appreciating any sacrifice that isn't made for her specifically. This is confirmed when she forgives her mother because her mother hoped that the spider venom could cure all known diseases, which we don't really care about, but also cure her, Madam Web, of her genetic AIDS or whatever she had, which she only knows that she had now because despite it being her mother's principal motive, her mother apparently never thought to mention it in her copious notes and journals. And having now realized that her mother sacrificed herself so that she, Madam Web, could live with no disabilities save for acute mental deficiency and a severe case of personal myopia, Madam Web learns that it is worth taking responsibility, because if you take responsibility, you'll be rewarded with magical powers, and magical powers are cool. Yeah, so 2 things immediately jump out from all of this. In the first place, this scene establishes that there is really not that much separating the characters of Madam Web and Evil, because both of them only see the value in spider venom as it helps them specifically. Their attitude to the rest of the global population who could benefit immensely from the spider venom is pretty much exactly the same. Fuck them, they don't matter. This is all about me. Evil wants all the spider venom for himself. Fuck the rest of the population, he doesn't want to help. And Madam Web thinks that her mother trying to save the rest of the population with spider venom is intolerably selfish, and only forgives her when she realizes that her mother was also trying to save her. In the second place, which is really just an extension of the first place, the reformulated version of "with great power comes great responsibility" very neatly encapsulates the actual genetic flaw in Madam Web's character, and indeed in so many modern and especially modern female movie characters. Entitlement. Whereas Uncle Ben was trying to remind Peter that what you do with your powers is more important than the powers themselves, that having power places a responsibility on you to act for the betterment of others, that physical strength is no substitute for moral strength, and that the most important growth is rooted in your character, Peruvian Spider Jesus, by contrast, has essentially told Madam Web, yeah, it's worth doing things for other people because they might, reward you with magic. That is an almost complete inversion of Uncle Ben's lesson. One teaches the self-sufficient value of moral character and virtue, and the other teaches you that NPCs will give you stuff if you do side quests for them. And if this film weren't such a joke, it might be worth expending a lot more time exploring the implications of this newly reformulated lesson, and asking what it reveals about the minds of the writers as well as of the characters that they create. Is it really how they see the world? And is this perhaps why they can't create characters any moral person would seek to emulate any longer? Is this just maybe pivotal to the decline of the hero in fiction, that writers themselves have lost touch with what heroism actually entails? Can we maybe extrapolate from that into a diagnosis of the problems in society as stemming from a shift from goodness as a moral value toward moral behavior's contingency on material reward? But since this film really is just a complete fucking joke, there's no point doing any of that, so let's just move on. Now that Madam Web has improved foresight and the ability to use the web to be in more places at once, whatever the hell that means and however the hell that works, she toddles back to the American border and hops on the Greg Abbott Express that deposits her back in New York, much to the annoyance of all the people there who voted for precisely this sort of thing to occur. Uncle Ben, meanwhile, is in a spot of bother. He's supposed to be looking after the 3 girls, while his pregnant sister and as yet unborn, name redacted, comes to stay. During all this time, Evil and his NSA spy program of limitless potential have not made any progress at all in tracking them down.
Every day that goes by, my appointment with death gets closer. You still have found nothing? How could you have kept 3 teenagers hidden for a week?
I'm running checks every 3 minutes, scanning CCTV camera. I have hacked police and emergency services frequencies. I have eyes on all of their houses, including friends and family. Still nothing.
Yep, sure. They're staying with friends and family, but your constant monitoring of friends and family have turned up no leads at all. Fine. Okay. What a fucking useless villain you are. Useless police too, by the way, because you might recall, and well done if you do, because the film has completely forgotten, that the police believe all 3 girls have been kidnapped and Madam Web is their prime suspect, and yet they've never bothered paying her closest friends a visit either. But, inconveniently, Uncle Ben's sister's waters break at this precise moment, meaning that, name redacted, is shortly to arrive on the scene. Doubly inconveniently, the ambulance they call is going to take a while to arrive, and this is very, very serious, because, Uncle Ben is only a highly trained paramedic, so he can't possibly be expected to cope with this sort of medical emergency. So they decide they're going to have to drive to the nearest hospital themselves, and, for absolutely no fucking reason, the 3 girls go with them. No, that is not an exaggeration, even though I have just put, echo and shit on that no fucking reason. It's not an exaggeration. There is quite literally no fucking reason they should be doing this. They'd be perfectly fine and safe if they stayed in the house. But if they were to stay in the house, they would be perfectly fine and safe. So the rest of the film couldn't happen. So yeah, they have to get in the car with Uncle Ben and this overstuffed piñata, and off they go. One of the girls stares gormlessly out of the window, meaning her face gets picked up on the camera, meaning that Evil now knows where they are. Hooray. Here then is another instance of him being a total moron. It's the problem with introducing technology with limitless potential. It's very hard to convey that, and it's very hard then to make the owners of that technology not look stupid when they use it in very limited ways. Even better films struggle with this. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, for example, has a very similar problem with its all-powerful AI god. And yes, when I say that Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is a better film, that really does tell you how low the bar is for Madam Web. There's really not much point listing all the things he could be doing with this tech that would be much more effective than his actual plan, because almost any possible use of that tech would be more effective than his actual plan, which is to transform into gay spider demon and chase the kids through the streets of New York while holding a grenade. God, the thing can control the transit network in the whole city. Malfeasance uses it to turn all the lights green, meaning that she could have used it at any point to turn all the lights red and just have trapped them in a traffic jam long enough for Evil to take them out. That's not even very clever. You don't have to be clever to improve on his plan. You just have to not have a brain made of wood. Madam Web makes it back to their house, but oh no, they're not there. She spots a puddle of womb fluid on the floor. Then she has a premonition. Yeah, by the way, it's actually taken me this far into the script before I remember the actual word for flashing forward, because I think this film was actually giving me brain damage. But yeah, I'm not going back to change it. No, I'm just going to own the fact that I only remembered that a premonition is what happens. Yeah. Fuck it, yeah. So she has a premonition of the girl's impending deaths at the hands of gay spider demon and his gay spider grenade. Outside, the ambulance they'd called earlier shows up, so she steals the ambulance and drives off in pursuit of them, an ambulance being a much quicker and easier thing to maneuver through New York traffic than a stolen taxi. I have to point out, GTA Vice City has been out for a year by this point in the timeline, so we know that Madam Web has never ever played it. Malfeasance does indeed. Fucking why? Why are you turning all the lights green? Why aren't you turning them red? What are you doing? But anyway, purely by luck, turning all the lights green creates a traffic jam, even though turning them red would have accomplished it way more easily. This means that Gay Spider Demon can jump down from on top of a building and pull the pin out of his Gay Spider grenade and pose for a bit. I suppose Gay Spider Sniper Rifle wouldn't have fit up his arsehole, which genuinely seems to be where he's just pulled the grenade from, so that's why he doesn't use anything else. He's got a grenade. He's posing with the grenade. But in the 5 seconds before the grenade explodes, Madam Web, fuck it. Yeah, sod it. Here we go. Madam Web drives her ambulance up a ramp inside a building. She drives it through a wall at the other end, and this means that she flies through a second-story Calvin Klein advert, and she hits Gay Spider Demon with her ambulance in midair. And my cinema notes for this scene just read lol. Madam Web then bundles the kids into the ambulance and drives off, leaving Uncle Ben and pregnant Pinata behind. Her grand plan is to drive the ambulance to Chekhov's fireworks factory, which they manage to do because at one point diverse female character number 2 defibrillates the roof of the ambulance to zaps Gay Spider Demon off the roof. Yeah, this is a very sensible plan. This in no way risks causing significant damage to the ambulance and everybody inside it. This absolutely is the kind of thing that's likely to work. Good job his spider suit isn't made of rubber. Also, by the way, they are in a stolen ambulance, which she's just driven through a second-story wall to knock the grenade out of the hand of a Gay Spider Demon in the middle of New York, and the NYPD thinks that this just isn't something that's worth their time. That grenade, by the way, it blew up a taxi. Got nothing from law enforcement, absolutely nothing. And I can't even say it's a good job they're all white, I guess, because they're not. One of them's actually black. The New York Times informs me the police would have dropped a nuke on them by now. But no, nothing, no police response. They're just not there. It's 2003. Michael Bloomberg is mayor. He was supposed to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime and all that stuff. But okay, never mind. Madam Web has a premonition that the big set piece will take place in the abandoned fireworks factory, and this premonition technically spoils pretty much the entirety of the rest of the film, because that's what Foresight does. Their plan is to get to the factory, to light all of the fireworks, to somehow not die, to climb to the roof, and to wait for a helicopter that will pick them up. We see all of this happen in her premonition. Back in the present, Madam Web radios in and asks for help from a helicopter at the fireworks factory. So then they go to the fireworks factory, and they light all the fireworks, and they somehow don't die, and they climb to the roof, and they wait for the helicopter, which we've already seen happen. Only at the very end of the sequence does anything go even momentarily wrong. The rest of it is really just there to demonstrate that Madam Web now has pretty much complete control of her powers now, and this makes her awesome and cool. They light the fireworks, she can predict where each and every one of the fireworks in a whole fireworks factory will fly off to, meaning that they don't hit anybody, at least nobody good. She even gets to pick up a bit of metal and use it as a shield in slow motion because she is just so awesome and cool. I think the only other thing worth noting about the factory scene, besides it being in every way an insane plan and an insane set piece that should never have been greenlit, is that Foresight does remove all stakes from the scene. Because not only can Madam Web see the future, we've already seen the future through her visions, so we already know that they'll all be fine. Oh, also, it's very funny because at one point, Gay Spider Demon is jumping through the air after them, and he gets taken out by what can only be described as a huge explosion of absolutely nothing. Look, there he is jumping along. Oh God, watch out for that nothing. Oh no, you got hit by the nothing. Look at him flying off to the side. God, you really do have to watch out for that nothing. You might think fires and explosions and rockets are your biggest threat in an exploding fireworks factory, but no, it's the nothing you've really got to look out for. That shit's lethal. Now, I did mention that at the end of the sequence something goes momentarily wrong, which I suppose technically it does, because as they wait for the helicopter to descend, Evil punches a firework that is heading at him, and it flies off and it takes out the helicopter. Meaning that, yes, we've given Madam Web a power set that's so all-encompassing and brilliant that the only way to manufacture even the pretense of peril is if we briefly just forget that this is a thing that she's able to do. The only other possible explanation is that her vision of the future was incomplete somehow, and she simply missed this key detail of it. But given that it's so far enabled her to track and predict the movements of every firework in an exploding fireworks factory, this seems like a deficient explanation. well, whatever form of stupidity happens to be the reason, it means they're now all trapped on the roof of an exploding fireworks factory and the girls are in trouble. They all find ways to fall over and end up getting suspended on girders above fiery death, while Madam Web faces off against Evil, who's taken his gay spider mask off now because it's the finale. We need to see him not acting, I suppose. It has previously been established that if gay spider demon touches you, his gay spider venom will get into your system and you will die. Look, here is Madam Web herself explaining that this is exactly what will happen.
Okay, so this guy's hands somehow release an acute neurotoxin, and it is painful. I was lucky. The longer he holds on to you, the more poison gets into your system. Then what happens? Then your heart stops.
But it's not actually, no, that's not what happens. It isn't a thing anymore. The writers, I think they just forgot about it because, you know, he grabs Madam Web several times, he punches Tits McGee, he grabs diverse female character number 1 when she skateboards on sheet metal down a girder and fails to club him with a pole, but none of these people die from spider venom. They don't even have to CPR each other. The girls just end up hanging off of poles for a bit. This is where Madam Web's trailed ability to be in multiple places at the same time comes into play. They needed it for this scene, so they mentioned it earlier that this is a thing that she can do now, and this is as close to setup and payoff as we really get in the film. There's absolutely zero point asking just what this power really is, or how it connects to her seeing the future, how it really works, because none of that's ever going to be answered, this thing's never going to get a sequel, and this film's never going to answer it for us. It's just a thing she can do, for the next few minutes at least. So Madam Web splits into multiple versions of herself, and her multiple versions help the 3 girls to not die. Though for some reason this means her primary self is unable to move while all of this is happening. Happily though, Evil obligingly waits until she's finished saving the 3 girls before he steps forward and punches her. Doubly happily, he decides to punch her in pretty much the only direction labeled safe, rather than knocking her off the roof and to her death, like a sensible person, which is actually, if anything, easier to do. So now we get the epic final face-off. They're standing on a giant Pepsi sign. Oh boy, that product placement, that sure does become relevant again in just a few seconds. It is worth noting that the film has so far had just one meaningful interaction between its protagonist and its antagonist, which is some way less than ideal, because it means there's really nothing to pay off or hark back to in this scene. I kind of brushed it aside on first watch, but looking back, it really is bizarre. I can't think of many films in which the hero and the villain have so little to do with each other. In fact, have pretty much nothing to do with each other at all, for the duration. The film too seems to have realized this is a problem, but far too late. This is their second and final face-to-face exchange, and I assume in the writer's room there was a collective silence as the dozen or so monkeys looked at each other, thinking, "Ah, shit, we've fucked up here. They've got nothing to say to each other. What are we meant to do? Like really, what are they supposed to say to each other? We've built nothing up." After all, the point of having your heroes and villains interact is that it establishes connections, bonds, relationships, dynamics, that in a serious film written by more than a dozen monkeys would pay off at the close. You have a conflict of visions, maybe, a moral battle, the hero's awakening that reveals the folly of the villain's lust for power, the hero showing that the villain in fact has some good left inside them, that they have been corrupted by evil but have the strength to redeem themselves. Lots of good stuff you could do, lots of various archetypes you could draw on, but because we've not had any of that in this movie, the monkeys just really had kind of, no choice. They just went back to that one scene where the 2 most important characters shared a few words with each other, and they had to pick out any old sentence at random in the hopes that the audience will think that that constitutes some sort of arc, I suppose.
It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times, you stupid monkey!
So Evil says,
"You still can't beat me with your mind."
I don't understand you, Evil. What are you talking about? No, it was then and remains now something Madam Web has never tried to do to him at any point. The fuck are you talking about, Evil? No. Madam Web then says, "What makes you so sure?" Evil says, "You're just like your mother." Madam Web says, "Yes, I am." And this is very interesting, because in fact, it is not true. It's a deceptively important line, in fact, important in a way the film's writers do not realize, because it actually reveals a massive difference between Mother Web and Madam Web. Back in Peru, Mother Web tried to appeal to Evil's better nature. As he bears down on her with the gun, she tries to persuade him that he's wrong. She tells him about all the lives they could save with the spider venom. She tries to change his mind. which is exactly what Madam Web does not do here. And that's more meaningful than you might think, because Madam Web actually has more cause to try to convince him than Mother Web did. Mother Web was just a bit desperate, and her entreaties failed because he is a dick. But here, Madam Web knows that the visions that motivate him, those repeat nightmares that have driven him on his mad quest to murder 3 teenage girls, are, in fact, a lie. He kept seeing the faces of the 3 girls, but his dreams were lying to him. It wasn't the 3 girls who'd end up killing him. As Madam Web explains in this scene, it was Madam Web herself.
I'm trying to change your future. But the girls were never your future. I was.
At this point, Evil gets pinned under some falling debris, and the film forgets that the spider venom gives him super strength. So he remains trapped. Then the platform he's on collapses, and he falls to the ground. And then a letter falls off the giant Pepsi sign, and it hits him, and he dies. A man who has been hit at high speed by a taxi, a man who has been twatted at high speed by an ambulance driven off the 2nd story of a building, and recovered instantly from both, gets squashed by Pepsi. Okay. This is either a wonderfully clever way for the writers to complain about studio interference, or, and much more likely, it's just very fucking silly. But back to that moral question. Mother Web, with less evidence, made a moral appeal to Evil. Madam Web, who can actually see the future, who has been told she can see the future, who has been told she is the only one with the power to change the future, and who knows that Evil has been motivated by a lie, makes no such appeal. She never even tries to convince the villain that he's wrong. She never even tries to change his mind. She never makes any attempt at all to save him. She just baits him to a death that she foresaw based on dreams she knows to be false, and she never utters so much of a word to bring him back from evil. Never even considers saving him, though she is uniquely placed to do that. So no, Evil, and no, Madam Web, you're both wrong. She's nothing like her mother. Her mother was a selfless, pretty good, if quite naive woman. Madam Web is just a bitch. Distressingly, that's not the end of the film, as the rest of the Pepsi sign falls into the river, taking Madam Web down with it. Oh dear, what a shame. The last time that happened, she got superpowers, but this time an underwater fireball hits her in the face and blinds her. Tits McGee, though, somehow she got off the roof of this factory. All the girls got off the roof of the exploding fireworks factory. I don't know how, neither does the film. So Tits McGee swims down and lifts her up, and the 3 girls who were taught CPR earlier remember that they were taught CPR earlier, so they use CPR now. They were taught that it would help against spider venom. I mean, you might think the natural thing would be for Madam Web to beat gay spider demon, but become infected with the evil spider venom, so they'd have to use the CPR to stop her from dying, but maybe the price of the venom is that she goes blind. But no, she gets hit underwater by a fireball, because that's actually worse. It doesn't connect to anything that the film has set up. Or yeah, fine, whatever film. The music swells. It really wants us to believe that something potentially tragic and meaningful is occurring as the girls use CPR to save her from drowning, but it isn't, because it's Madam Web. So she splutters awake and they have a big hug, and then we cut away to hospital where little baby, name redacted, is born. At no point will Madam Web ever look into the future and warn his mother that she's going to die. At no point will she look into the future, see how that happens, and make any attempt to stop it, ensuring that name redacted has to grow up with Uncle Ben. And you might be thinking, well, okay, but that's, the film's stupid, right? Obviously they didn't think of that. But no, here's the thing, because the film is actually aware of this. It actually hints that this is something she could, and by extension should have done. Because as Madam Web lies in the hospital bed, one of the diverse female characters, can't remember which, really doesn't matter, tells her that Uncle Ben is loving being an uncle. It means, and I quote, he gets all of the fun and none of the responsibility, to which Madam Web replies,
"That's what he thinks."
Okay, hold up. We're so close to the end, but you can't be dropping lines like that in and expecting, no, this cannot go without mention. So, yeah, Madam Web can see the future. She can see that bit of the future in particular, and this line strongly suggests that she knows Uncle Ben is going to end up taking care of name redacted. Therefore, she has probably foreseen already that she knows that name redacted's parents will die, and her response is to pre-quip. She pre-quips that the parents are gonna die and that Uncle Ben is gonna end up taking care of the kid. Fucking hell, film. Oh my god, yeah. That's like, I don't know. I mean, let's say I can see the future. I'm round your house for a party. I have foreseen that your father is going to die in a tragic car crash, and I haven't mentioned that to anyone. I've not mentioned it to you yet. Something related comes up in conversation. You say, oh yeah, my dad's racing NASCAR in 6 months' time. He's such a good driver. And my response is, that's what you think. And then I shot a bottle of whiskey and I don't elaborate. How the fuck do you people not think through the lines that you're writing? What? This was always going to be a problem. You don't have to call attention to it, though. You don't have to have Madam Web pre-quip about Peter Parker's the name redacted. Parents are gonna die tragically and Uncle Ben's gonna be stuck with the kid. What is that supposed to be a joke? Why would you, like, if you've seen this, why aren't you trying to stop it? Peruvian Spider Jesus told you had the power to change the future as well as see it. If you've already seen this, why don't you help? What is wrong with you, Madam Web? Why are you so evil? Why are you ensuring that the kid grows up an orphan? I'm assuming you're still around in the actual timeline, and you do nothing to stop Uncle Ben dying either. So yeah, like, you actually do ensure that he grows up an orphan, and you're sitting there in a hospital bed, chuckling. What kind of character is this? Oh, God. Oh well, we're wrapping up now. The family unification theme this film has been vaguely aware of throughout gets its payoff at the close. The doctor comes in and asks if the girls are Madam Web's immediate family, and she says yes, they are all hers, which is absolutely not how the law works given all of their parents are still alive, but never mind. She's, I suppose, an actual kidnapper now. Incidentally, because Madam Web can see the future and is now blind, and is also stuck in a wheelchair for reasons that genuinely I don't think are even in the film, she's just ended up in a wheelchair. This means that her character has to change entirely. She now delivers every line with that deadpanned autistic detachment of Bran Stark.
I can never be Lord of Winterfell. I can never be Lord of anything. I'm the three-eyed raven.
How's your eyesight? I can see better than I ever have.
Oh yeah? Can you see us in the future?
Yes. I can see you.
I think the intent behind both characters is pretty much the same. This is a person who sees so very much more than everybody else. Someone who sees all the interconnecting strands and webs of time, all the possible futures. And we can convey this, says the hag writer, by having them speak like they've got a severe leak on the brain. It was incredibly annoying when Bran did it. It's quite annoying now Madam Web's doing it, but at least we only have to put up with her for like maybe 2 more minutes at most. Bran was Bran for several seasons, and he became the fucking king. Back in her apartment that I'm pretty sure her disability checks will not cover, the girls bring back takeaway as Spider Bran, blind goggles and wheelchair and all, continues to display all the traits of a cute personality vacuum. But this is her grand peroration scene. They have sapped all personality out of her for her peroration, which is an unusual artistic choice. But we still get the peroration, her parting words, her big final speech, the last we'll ever hear her speak if we're lucky and if Sony has any sense at all. It's all about the girls in the future that Madam Bran has seen. They're standing up for what they believe in. They're never giving up. They're wearing those spider suits that featured about as much in the trailers as they have in the entirety of this movie. Spider Bran wheels her paralysis chariot around to the window and says ominously, "Whatever the future holds, we'll be ready." What? Whatever the future holds. Whatever the future. You can see the future. That's your thing. That's what the whole movie's been about. Oh God, sod it. It's done. It's finished. The movie's done. I'm done. We made it. She says the best thing about the future is that it hasn't happened. I don't think that's true. I think I don't know if it'd be the best part of the future. One of the better things about the future, Madam Web, is that you're really highly unlikely to be in it. And that's it. No summary for this one. Doesn't need it. That was Madam Web, folks. People actually wrote it. It's a film. It exists. It's hilarious. Genuinely one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had in the cinema for a good few months. Yeah, laugh a minute stuff. And our job now is to meme it. Meme it so fucking hard that they hopefully release it again so more empty seats can enjoy the masterclass in accidental comedy that is Madam Web. This video has of course been pretty much exclusively mocking, not very much constructive criticism going into that, not very much literary analysis, but that all changes now, because Dune Part 2 is either coming out or is out depending on whether this video gets past copyright. This one has been great fun to mock. I'm hoping though that one will be great fun to analyze. Madam Web's already seen it. She could probably tell us how it goes, but us mere mortals will just have to wait and see. Thanks to the usual set of people, the Premiere chat, the viewers, Altries, who is my editor, and my patrons. I will see you all very soon.